Chapter 667 Weapon Smithing 2 Lower the temperature required for quenching? Luo Chichi was taken aback. Weren't weapons quenched with water? There was a limit to how cold a water could be before it would turn into ice, so how could the temperature required for quenching be reduced? Besides, Zhongxian was viewing the matter too lightly. The difference in the temperature wasn't all that mattered. More importantly, quenching had to be done within the durability limit of the weapon. Otherwise, the weapon might be unable to endure the abrupt change in temperature and shatter. There were many blacksmiths who had tried to change the substance used for quenching so as to further raise the tier of their crafted weapon, but more often than not, the quenching fluid ended up reacting with their weapon instead. As a result, the weapon they had forged with great difficulty shattered, resulting in a waste of their effort and precious ores. Smithing was a very complex art. The proportion of ores, temperature, type of quenching fluid, timing. All of these factors played a crucial role in determining the quality of the ultimate product, and a shortcoming in any of them could easily lead to a subpar product or even failure. As such, the difficulty of smithing could be considered to be on par with pill forging. It was also due to the profoundness behind the art that blacksmith was classified as an upper nine paths occupation. Indeed. Zhongxian nodded in agreement. Did you bring your pill cauldron here? Pill, cauldron? Luo Chichi repeated in astonishment, thinking that she had heard it wrong. Aren't we going to forge a weapon? Why will we need a pill cauldron? Zhongxian looked at her calmly and said, I want you to forge ice soul pills. Ice soul pills? Luo Chichi was taken aback. Then, coming to a realization, her eyes widened. Teacher intends to use the frigidity from Ice Soul Pill to quench the weapon? Ice Soul Pill was a unique medicine that was used to awaken the Ice Soul constitution. Should an ordinary human consume it, the special frost aura harnessed within it would freeze him to death instantly. But no matter how cold the Ice Soul Pill is, how could it be used to quench the sword, especially considering its size? Luo Chichi was bewildered. An average Ice Soul Pill was around the size of a grape, whereas the Glacier Rain Sword was nearly a meter long. How could a small pill possibly be used to quench an entire sword? One must know it was imperative for the entire blade to be plunged into the quenching fluid simultaneously so that it would undergo the quenching process simultaneously. Otherwise, the blade could end up with differing degrees of hardness across it, and the imbalance would end up introducing vulnerabilities to it instead. Using a pill to quench an entire sword. Why did it sound completely inconceivable to her? Interrupting the other party's queries, Zhongxian asked, put that aside for now. You just have to tell me whether you have a pill cauldron and medicinal herbs to forge an Ice Soul Pill now. After a moment of hesitation, Luo Chichi said, Ice Soul Pill is an uncommon pill, and it is rarely forged by apothecaries as well. As such, I don't have the complete set of medicinal herbs to forge it. However, a while ago, I promised someone to forge a frigid yin pill for her, and I prepared 3 portions of the medicinal herbs for it. Ice Soul Constitution was an extremely rare unique constitution that only handful of people of the entire master-teacher continent possessed. As such, Ice Soul pills were rarely forged. Even if one were to search through the entire apothecary school of Hongyuan Master-Teacher Academy, one would probably be unable to find even a single Ice Soul pill. Frigid yin pill? Zhongxian frowned. The effects of frigid yin pill is inferior to Ice Soul pill. However, if we were to use the 3 portions together, we might be able to make up for the qualitative difference through quantity. Frigid yin pill was a medicament used to treat injuries incurred from fire attribute cultivation techniques. Even though there was the difference of a grade between it and the Ice Soul pill, if they were to use the 3 portions of medicinal herbs properly, they should be able to bridge the difference. Alright, we'll forge the pill and the weapon simultaneously. Zhongxian contemplated for a moment to further analyze his plan and refine the details, and after which, he waved his hands, gesturing for Luo Chichi to start. Yes. Knowing that her teacher must have already worked out the details, Luo Chichi decided to just go along with him. With a flick of her wrist, she took out her pill cauldron and lit it up. At the same time, she also lit up the crimson blaze cauldron. As an apothecary, she carried the materials she needed to forge a pill everywhere she went, be it the medicinal herbs, cauldron, or coal. As such, it didn't take too long for her to get ready. Not too long later, the flames surged, and searing heat emanated from the cauldrons. Teacher. After laying out the medicinal herbs required for the forging of frigid yin pill neatly on the table not too far away, Luo Chichi turned her gaze to her teacher. While she didn't know what Zhongshe was up to, after witnessing the various miraculous feats he had accomplished, she possessed a near equivalent of blind faith in the latter. Perhaps, with the other party's guidance, she might just be able to upgrade a spirit intermediate tier weapon to spirit pinnacle. On the other hand, Zhongxian took a glance at the cauldrons and instructed, "The cauldrons still aren't hot enough, continue raising the temperature. Frigid yin pill is a cold attribute medicine. If the pill cauldron is too hot, I fear that we might deprive it of its cold properties." Upon hearing the instruction to continue raising the temperature, Luo Chichi's lips twitched. Even the current temperature was already too hot for the forging of frigid yin pill. Any further than that and the frigid yin pill would melt before its formation, thus evaporating any frigid aura it should harness. But instead of explaining, Zhongxian simply reiterated his instruction, "Continue raising the temperature." Yes. Gritting her teeth, Luo Chichi drove her zhenqi and infused it into the coals. Xiong 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 xiong. Huge flames burst forth from the cauldrons, threatening to melt down the pill cauldron. Place the glacier rain sword and cold emerald stone into the crimson blaze cauldron. UN. Perplexed as she was, Luo Chichi decided to just follow Zhongxian's instructions. She picked up the sword and cold emerald stone and placed it in the smithing cauldron. Upon contact with the searing cauldron, the glacier rain sword immediately glowed crimson as the intense heat whittled down its flexibility and durability. If it were to be retrieved from the cauldron right now, it would surely suffer a sharp fall in tier. At the same time, the cold emerald stone also started to soften. However, the temperature of the cauldron seemed to be too low to melt it entirely. In the pill cauldron, add 3 stalks of crimson tail grass. 3 breaths later, add a stalk of frigid yin grass. After which, use the 7 leaves forging technique to add in half a stalk of void severing grass and 3 chen of purple star smoke. Zhongxian instructed swiftly. Frowning, Luo Chichi's hands flew around the place as she added the medicinal herbs precisely according to Zhongxian's instructions. As a famous genius of the apothecary school, her talent in pill forging far surpassed that of her smithing. Zhongxian's instructions may have been swift, but she could still follow them with ease. But as she continued to add medicinal herbs into the pill cauldron, amazement swiftly built up within her. She found that she actually knew every single forging technique that the other party instructed her to utilize. There were even some of them that she learned coincidentally or secretly, and very few in the academy knew that she was aware of them. Yet, the other party included those in his instructions as well. She didn't think that it was a mere coincidence or that she was knowledgeable. Most likely, Zhongshe had grasped the full extent of her capabilities and designed a forging method tailored for her. How profound must one's understanding of pill forging be in order to achieve this? This feat far exceeded the boundaries of incredible. It was terrifying. Even her teacher, school head Lu of the apothecary school, would be incapable of such a feat. To think that the purple star smoke and the void severing grass could be added into the cauldron simultaneously. Based on my previous conjecture, the 2 medicinal herbs would react violently with one another, inducing an explosion. Yet, there isn't the slightest instability in the cauldron due to it now. If I'm not wrong, this has something to do with the intensity of the flames. While Luo Chichi was astonished, she was also ruminating on the various steps of the forging process. The sequence at which Zhongshe instructed her to add the medicinal herbs in was completely contrary to the frigid yin pill formula that she learned in the past. On top of that, the speed of the forging this time round was so swift that it was mind-boggling. Typically, it would take at least 3 to 4 hours for her to finish forging the frigid yin pill. However, in less than half a minute, she had already added in half of the 3 portions of medicinal herbs. A thought suddenly came to her, and her eyes narrowed in shock. Wait a minute. Does Zhongshe intend to forge the 3 portions of medicinal herbs simultaneously? But this is impossible. The reason why 3 portions of medicinal herbs were usually prepared was to serve as a backup should the pill forging fail. In other words, the medicinal herbs were intended to be used in 3 separate forging processes. And yet, Zhongshe actually instructed her to throw all of them into the pill cauldron, putting 3 portions of medicinal herbs into a single cauldron. To make an analogy, it was similar to a person driving 3 horses at once. Was that even possible? Worried, she quickly turned to her teacher for reassurance, only to see the latter continuing to issue instructions nonchalantly. Use the cascading silk forging technique to add in 3 stalks of tricoin grass and 2 petals of red-leafed flower. Never mind, there is definitely no mistake in listening to teacher's instructions. Clenching her jaws in resolution, Luo Chichi continued adding more medicinal herbs into the cauldron according to Zhongshen's instructions. Back then, in the apothecary guild, she was also worried that the cauldron would explode at any moment. However, following the other party's instructions, not only did she succeed, she even managed to forge a grade 6 medicinal solution, gaining precious experience in the midst of doing so. After witnessing the many eye-widening, tongue-tying means of Zhongshe, surely this should be nothing for her to worry about as well. The further she progressed into the forging process, the faster the pace at which medicinal herbs were thrown in. As such, it didn't take long before the cauldron was teetering before its breaking point. She wasn't able to overcome her anxiety the previous time, but after having experienced it once, she learned to let go of her fears. Just as she was busy adding more medicinal herbs into the pill cauldron, Zhongshe's instructions suddenly sounded again. Intensify the flames for the crimson blaze cauldron. Yes. The rapid pace at which the forging was going at currently had left her a little flustered. Upon hearing that the flames of the crimson blaze cauldron had to be intensified, Luo Chichi hurriedly drove her zhenqi and infused it over frenziedly through her left hand. Hula! The flames immediately intensified with zeal. Using zhenqi to control the temperature of the flames was the most fundamental skill that every apothecary and blacksmith would learn as soon as they come into contact with the art. As a talented apothecary, Luo Chichi had no problem doing so. What she was truly struggling with at the moment was multitasking. With a hand busy with the medicinal herbs while the other infusing zhenqi into the crimson blaze cauldron, it didn't take long for her entire face to be drenched with sweat. The cauldrons before her also kept rocking non-stop, threatening to explode on her at any moment. Teacher. Flustered, Luo Chichi quickly turned to look at Zhongshen. While the explosion of the frigid yin pill would be much weaker than the explosion of the grade 6 medicinal solution they concocted before, given the current cultivation of the duo, it still wasn't a force that they could withstand. Not to mention, the crimson blaze cauldron was also in an unstable position at the moment. The explosion of the pill cauldron would surely agitate the crimson blaze cauldron as well, and the combined might of the 2 cauldron explosions would kill them even before the puppet could. It could be said that they were in far greater danger than they were back in the apothecary hall. When they forged the grade 6 medicinal solution back then, the head of the apothecary guild was around, and the forging was done within the apothecary guild as well. Even if an explosion were to occur, the guild leader and the formation within the guild would surely suppress the explosion as soon as possible, thus minimizing the damage. However, there was no such insurance here. Don't panic. Add a stalk of mint aroma flower into the pill cauldron. Zhongshen continued instructing calmly. In truth, he was also anxious at the sight of the rocking cauldrons, but he knew that this was the only way they could survive the dire situation they were in. If the glacier rain sword didn't reach spirit pinnacle, they would be unable to kill the puppet. Even if they were to find the exit, they would surely be unable to escape. Having experienced the fearsome might of that puppet firsthand, he knew that they would never be able to outrun it given their current cultivation. Thus, this was their best and possibly only shot at survival. Seeing her teacher's nonchalant attitude to the matter, Luo Chichi felt reassured. Nodding, she continued intensifying the flames in the crimson flame cauldron with her left hand while grabbing the mint aroma flower with her right. Hulala. As soon as the mint aroma flower was thrown into the pill cauldron, the energies within it seemed to abruptly calm down. Luo Chichi heaved a sigh of relief. However, at that moment, she suddenly felt a bizarre sensation in her left hand, so she hurriedly turned her head to take a look. With a glance, her eyes immediately narrowed. Teacher, bad news. The glacier rain sword is melting. Unknowingly, the fiery red crimson rain sword had softened, and it was just a matter of time before it would be reduced to mere metallic fluid. Chapter 668, Third Acknowledgement of Celestial Master Teacher. Even though the Glacier Rainsword was a spirit intermediate tier weapon, due to its cold attribute, its melting point was significantly lower than other weapons of the same tier. The crux behind upgrading a weapon was to fuse one or a few rare metals into the original weapon. One of the greatest taboos in this process was to melt the original weapon. If the original weapon were to lose its original shape, it would lose its original attributes, and the weapon would have to be reforged from scratch. That would mean an increase in the difficulty by several-fold. As Luo Chichi had been multitasking, she hadn't been paying attention to the Glacier Rainsword. Who knew that while she was preoccupied with placing a few medicinal herbs into the pill cauldron, the Glacier Rainsword would actually reach its melting point. Upgrading a spirit intermediate tier weapon to high tier was simple, but forging a spirit high tier weapon from scratch. At the very least, given Luo Chichi's current capability, she didn't think that she was capable of it. Just as she was completely flustered by the sudden situation, Zhongshu's confident voice sounded, "Add a droplet of purple star grass's medicinal extract onto the Glacier Rainsword." Purple star grass's medicinal extract? All right. As soon as she took out the medicinal extract, she suddenly froze as she came to a realization. Onto the Glacier Rainsword? What kind of insanity was this? Glacier Rainsword was a weapon, whereas the purple star grass's medicinal extract should be used for pill forging. Adding the medicinal extract to the weapon? That was no different to adding some minced meat and tomato ketchup on a metal ingot while trying to cast a metal pot. Are you sure you are forging a weapon and not barbecuing it to eat? Are you certain you didn't issue the wrong instruction? That's right, hurry up, Zhongxian urged. All right. With twitching eyelids, Luo Chichi flicked her wrist, and the medicinal extract immediately fell on the melting Glacier Rainsword. Tzz la. The sizzling sound reminiscent of barbecued meat echoed in the air. The medicinal extract flowed down the sword as it gradually turned into a white mist, emanating a deep aroma. How fragrant! The aroma wafting in the air made Luo Chichi subconsciously draw in a deep breath. The purple star grass did leave a pleasant smell upon contact with flames. Perhaps she could make something to eat with it in the future. Just as she was harboring such thoughts, intense vertigo suddenly assaulted her, and her legs began wobbling weakly. This is bad. Luo Chichi's eyes narrowed as it suddenly dawned on her what she had just done, and her heart froze. The purple star grass was an extremely rare medicinal herb. Its name originated from the purple spots reminiscent of little stars on its surface. The medicinal herb usually served as a mediating factor to facilitate the forging process of other pills, but if used individually, it carried a slight poison that could induce hallucination and dizziness. Mesmerized by the pleasant scent, she actually neglected this. They were currently at a crucial moment in the pill forging and smithing. If she were to faint, there was little doubt that a cauldron explosion would occur. To be killed by a simultaneous explosion of a pill cauldron and a smithing cauldron. Should their bodies be found, they would probably go down as the first to do so in the long history of Hongyuan Empire. Luo Chichi attempted to gather her concentration, but her eyelid kept drooping down persistently. As hard as she struggled, drowsiness clung to her tightly, unwilling to relinquish its grasp over her. Zhongxian's face darkened. This is bad. He had refined his plans in anticipation of the many different things that could possibly go wrong in the forging process, but how could he have expected Luo Chichi to be so careless as to inhale the poisonous fume of the purple star grass? It was unbecoming of a 5-star apothecary to be so careless. But still, Luo Chichi couldn't be entirely blamed for the matter. The purple star grass was a rare medicinal herb that was hardly used by apothecaries, and even on occasions that it was required, it would usually serve as a mediating factor. As such, it wasn't too surprising for her to neglect its other properties. Furthermore, with her attention devoted to multitasking between the smithing and the pill forging, she had little capacity to process other thoughts either. It was the unfortunate combination of such factors that made her fall prey to the poisonous fumes. If Luo Chichi were to lose consciousness, they would be doomed. Even though Zhongxian had vast knowledge of pill forging and smithing, he was unable to translate them into practical skills for his own use. Under current circumstances, a double cauldron explosion would be inevitable. Or perhaps, could the formation be retracted so that they could draw the puppet over to kill it through the explosion? But Zhongxian couldn't control the timing and might of the explosion accurately either. If the explosion proved to be too strong, even if they were to survive the primary impact, there was a chance that the ceiling might collapse inward, burying them alive. More importantly, the puppet possessed extraordinary defensive ability. The might of the explosion might be fearsome to them, but there was no guarantee that it would be fatal to that fellow. Gu. Anxious, Zhongxian was just about to rush forward to wake Luo Chichi wake up when the cauldron before him shook intensely once more. Violent energies rampaged within it, and an explosion was imminent. The essence of the limit revolving pill forging technique was to keep the cauldron teetering just before the breaking limit. As a result, even the slightest lapse in concentration could easily result in an explosion. With the sudden onslaught of the drowsiness spell, the forging sequence was already delayed by nearly 2 breaths. If the medicinal herb wasn't added in at this very instant, an explosion would really occur. But given Zhongxian's current proximity to the medicinal herbs, even if he were to dash forward at this very instant, he still wouldn't make it in time. Add the red-leafed beard into the cauldron. Overwhelmed by anxiety, Zhongxian shouted. But this time, perhaps due to his sheer determination willing it to happen, his voice was subconsciously imbued with impartation of heaven's path. Who? Despite her lack of consciousness, Luo Chichi's movements remained as fluid as ever. She stretched her hand forward to grab the red-leafed beard and threw it into the cauldron. Voila! As the medicinal herb fell into the cauldron, the signs of explosion finally calmed down. This. Surprised by the turn of events, Zhongxian blinked in a daze for a short moment before excitement gushed through his body. Why didn't he think of this from the very start? As long as one's words were aligned with the quintessence of nature, one could induce another to follow one's instructions, willingly or not. Luo Chichi might have fallen into a semi-conscious state, but this didn't hinder the effects of impartation of heaven's will on her. In fact, with her emotions out of the equation, the pill forging was progressing smoother than before. Place the cold emerald stone beside the glacier rain sword. Following which, use the bamboo drawing forging technique to add a blade of frozen yin grass into the pill cauldron. Having succeeded once, Zhongxian continued using his impartation of heaven's will. Before this, Luo Chichi still had to process the differing sets of instructions for the 2 cauldrons and work simultaneously, and this had caused her to fall into a fluster. However, under the effects of the impartation of heaven's will, her hands could operate freely from one another, one focused on smithing while the other focused on pill forging. In an instant, her efficiency doubled. Tzzzzzz. As the cold emerald stone was placed with the glacier rain sword, the 2 began fusing with one another. Frowning, Zhongxian said, "Take out the sword and use the layered tempering technique to hammer it 779 times. Hearing the instructions, Luo Chichi shook her left hand, and the sword immediately fell onto a stone platform. She grabbed the hammer that Wu Yangzi had left behind and started hammering the sword. Zhongxian continued instructing her. Add the leisure flower stem and baoxing extract into the pill cauldron and raise the intensity of the flames by 30%. After that, use the lucid pitching hands to shake the cauldron 7 times. Hua lolo. Luo Chichi followed his instructions calmly, without the slightest error. Humans are subordinate to their emotions. Never having forged a pill and smithed simultaneously before, it was natural that Luo Chichi had felt trepidation upon seeing the pill cauldron being brought to the verge of explosion. With this kind of fear plaguing her, her movements had become restricted, thus making it hard for her to succeed. Who could have known that her losing consciousness would turn out to be a blessing in disguise, raising the effectiveness and efficiency of the entire forging process altogether? Zhongxian's instructions grew more and more rapid, and Luo Chichi's movements became faster and faster as well. The both of them were working together with such harmony that it seemed as though Zhongxian was forging the weapon and the pill himself. Even though the cauldron seemed as though it would explode at any moment, under Zhongxian's astute instructions, it was actually extremely safe. After hammering the glacier rain sword, which was fused with cold emerald stone and purple star grass, it regained its form as a sword, and it looked much sharper than before. After an unknown period of time, Zhongxian's eyebrows suddenly shot up. Driving his soul depth to its maximum, he instructed, "All right, open the pill cauldron." Who? Luo Chichi's right hand reached forward and opened the lid of the pill cauldron. The concentrated bulk of medicinal energies immediately gathered, and a pill was about to form at any moment now. Place the glacier rain sword into the cauldron. Upon hearing the instructions, the young lady subconsciously threw the long sword into the pill cauldron. Wang. A sharp buzzing sound reminiscent of a melody hummed by the dragons echoed in the stone chamber. It sounded so melodious that one could get drunk on it. Who? Following which, the glacier rain sword flew out from the pill cauldron and danced in the air, as though a bird which had just fled from its cage, releasing an excited call. A cold gleam flashed from the body of the sword, and it felt as though it could easily tear apart any metal or jade. Just by looking at its sharp edge, one would feel as though one's eyes might be pierced through by it. "Come here." Beckoning with his hands, the sword immediately flew over and landed in Zhongxian's outstretched hand. Lowering his head to examine it, the glacier rain sword was still of the same length. However, it looked much lighter, and its previously clear surface was now twinkling with stars. It felt as though the power of a celestial was infused into this blade, bringing an extraordinarily majestic disposition to the blade. Flicking his finger on the blade lightly, the sword immediately released a loud metallic call. It seemed as though it would transform into a mighty dragon and rule the heavens. "This is half-saint." Zhongxian narrowed his eyes in shock. Having mastered the knowledge contained within the 6 Heavens Path Smith Art manuals, his eye of discernment for weapon had reached a new height. Even without the Library of Heaven's Path, he could easily tell that the glacier rain sword had exceeded the boundaries of spirit pinnacle to reach half-saint. Weapons could be divided into god, saint, spirit, phantom, and mortal. Even though a half-saint weapon hadn't truly reached sainthood yet, it had already broken free from the shackles of spirit, reaching an entirely different level of existence. Even a 6-star pinnacle blacksmith like Wu Yangzi couldn't hope to successfully forge a sword of this quality. Only a 7-star blacksmith could possibly forge such a masterpiece. In other words, using the impartation of heaven's will, Zhongxian actually forged a half-saint weapon through Luo Chichi's hands. If word were to spread, innumerable people would surely die of shock. Weapons of such a tier were rare even within Hongyuan Empire. Flicking his wrist, Zhongxian put away the sword before turning to Luo Chichi. At this moment, she was meditating on the floor with her eyes closed, seemingly in a state of enlightenment. Even though she was unconscious during the forging process, the experience she gained from forging the frigid yin pills and upgrading the weapon through the impartation of heavens will remain with her as her muscle memory. With this, both her pill forging and smithing techniques would advance to greater heights. Seeing the other party's state, Zhongxian fell into deep thought. Even though she was unconscious throughout the forging process, her movements and her zhenqi circulation will stay with her as her muscle memory, forming a much stronger impression. The benefits she obtained from this were even greater than the guidance back in the Apothecary Guild. It seems like impartation of heavens will doesn't only impart the way of cultivation to others. It also encourages them to cultivate and tempers their mental resilience, thus paving their way for improvement in the future. Indolence and fear are a part of human nature, and inevitably, it is such. Should words fail to persuade them, enforcement will be necessary. Through forming muscle memory, this will pave the way for their future growth. Coming to an enlightenment, the underground chamber suddenly shook. A unique aura descended from the sky and shrouded Zhongxian entirely. The third acknowledgement of Celestial Master Teacher. Chapter 669, Mind of Void back in Huanyu Empire. At this moment, the collapsed infrastructure and cracked ground around the cleansing lake had already been fixed, and while the spiritual energy in the cleansing lake still wasn't as concentrated as before, it was showing signs of recovery. By the side of the cleansing lake, a huge stone tablet was erected, and 5 words were inscribed on it: Yangsha throws his shoe. These words carried a majesty that seemed to draw one's eyes to them. With just a glance, one could tell that it was the work of a 5-star painter. Not too far from the stone tablet was where Zhongxian rose from the top of a fire dragon and threw his shoe. By throwing the shoe, Zhongxian was just seeking the point where the three energies intersected. It need not necessarily be a shoe. Nevertheless, the shoe was still taken by the Huanyu Empire as its national treasure, and a stabilizing formation flag was put in its place. As long as the flag remained in place, the colliding spiritual energy would reach a state of equilibrium, thus providing energy to the cleansing lake, allowing Huanyu Empire to groom even more talents. It was truly a blessing in disguise for Huanyu Empire. Standing before the stone tablet, a historian recorded, Huanyu Empire, 67th year of Wantian's reign, winter. The spiritual energy from the verdant mountain, dragon-scaled river, and earth vein collided, destroying the cleansing lake and threatened to lay ruin to the capital. However, Yangsha descended from the sky and broke out of the perilous situation with a single shoe. While the historian was in the midst of writing, the water in the lake suddenly grew agitated, and bells chimed in the distance. Countless birds soared into the sky, shrouding the heavens. What is happening? I have no idea. Upon seeing this situation, the guards in the region stared at one another in confusion. Pavilion Master Wei, what is going on? Emperor Yi Wentian, who hadn't left the region, noticed the commotion as well and immediately rushed out from his room. Standing beside him was Pavilion Master Wei Jiang. Pavilion Master Wei suddenly recalled a certain ancient record he had read in the past and froze. Blessings of the 100 birds. Someone is being acknowledged for a celestial occupation. Yi Wentian froze as well. Celestial occupation? You mean someone has reached a proficiency in an occupation which even the heavens recognize? A celestial occupation represented the acknowledgement of the heavens for one's contribution and proficiency in a certain occupation. Those who could bring forth such a phenomenon were all top-notch geniuses who would surely achieve incredible feats in the future. For such a situation to occur here, doesn't that mean that there's a top-notch genius emerging in Huanyu Empire? That's right. Pavilion Master Wei nodded. Celestial occupation means that one's blessed by the heavens. Don't worry, I'll go and investigate it right now to see what occupation it is and who the one who triggered it is. Yuan, you should. Tell me after you uncovered that person's identity. I must pay that genius a visit personally. Yi Wentian replied. All right. Pavilion Master Wei leaped onto the back of the savage beast and flew off to the Master-Teacher Pavilion. However, before he could even enter the pavilion, an elder suddenly rushed over with a fearful expression on his face and reported, Pavilion Master, something bad has happened. The teacher acknowledgement hall has collapsed, and all of the ancestral tablets have fallen. The teacher acknowledgement hall has collapsed. Pavilion Master Wei was stunned. At that moment, he suddenly recalled another matter, and his body trembled in disbelief. Trembling of the myriad tokens, harmony of the chimes. Could the celestial occupation be Celestial Master Teacher? Celestial Master Teacher was an honor which only Empyrean Kongsha had undergone in the past. Even his direct disciples and the innumerable geniuses who rose after him had never been entitled to such honor before. For such an incredible phenomenon to occur in the Huanyu Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion. Who in the world was it? A figure suddenly surfaced in Pavilion Master Wei's mind. Could it be Yangsha? The only plausible candidate in his mind was that unfathomable master-teacher whom Pavilion Master Mo ordered a silence restraint for, Yangxian. The image of how that elder descended by the sky and sealed the impending calamity with just a single shoe was still deeply rooted in his mind. Recalling the order from Pavilion Master Mo, Pavilion Master Wei swiftly issued an order. Inform all of the master teachers to remain silent on this matter. Those who defy this order shall be stripped of their master-teacher qualification. Regardless of whether it was Yangxian or a celestial master-teacher, both of these were matters beyond them. It was best for them to remain silent on this matter, or else, they might just end up being wiped clean from the map. Besides, there had only been a single celestial master-teacher in the entire history of the human race, Kongsha. While his affairs were recorded by historians afterward, no one could say for sure whether the records were accurate, and if this phenomenon really represented the acknowledgement from the heavens. Yes. Even though the elder was bewildered by the situation, He still quickly nodded in response before returning to carry out Pavilion Master Wei's orders. In Myriad Kingdom City, stretching her back lazily, Zhao Feiwu walked out from her room. After cultivating in seclusion for a full month, she was feeling a little stiff all over. But even so, she knew that this was the only way she could catch a glimpse of that man's back, albeit the distance between them would only continue to increase. "You're done with your cultivation? Not bad, you have improved immensely." Pavilion Master Kang walked over, and after taking a look at Zhao Feiwu, he nodded in commendation. Zhongshe had entrusted Zhao Feiwu to him before departing, so Pavilion Master Kang had been focusing his attention on her throughout the past month, and the latter had benefited greatly from his guidance. Hong Long. At that moment, Pavilion Master Kang suddenly felt the ground beneath him tremble, and bells chimed furiously from the direction of the Master Teacher Pavilion. "This is Celestial Master Teacher? Again?" Pavilion Master Kang widened his eyes in shock. It had just happened just a while ago, why would it happen once again all of a sudden? When did the anticipated Celestial Master Teacher become so recurrent, as if it were an annual festival? Zhao Feiwu was taken aback. She suddenly recalled the bits and pieces of the young man whom she spent several months with, and she couldn't help but ask, could it be Zhongshe? Zhongshe? Impossible. He has already gone ahead to Huanyu Empire, and that is almost 1,000,000 kilometers away from here. How could it be him? Pavilion Master Kang shook his head. Even the phenomenon of a Celestial Master Teacher's acknowledgement had a fixed range to it. Considering how Zhongshe wasn't in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, how could he possibly trigger the phenomenon in here? I once read an ancient text, and it was said that when Kongshe became a Celestial 9-star Master Teacher, the entire continent celebrated his achievement. Phoenixes and true dragons arrived to offer their blessings, and rays of brilliant light fell from the heavens. Could the range of the phenomenon increase along with the rank of the Celestial Master Teacher? Zhao Feiwu analyzed. Even though she wasn't a Master Teacher, due to her disability, she'd spent her entire youth reading books. Not to mention, as an empire, the Myriad Kingdom Alliance did contain many confidential texts depicting the history and numerous secrets of the continent. In terms of general knowledge, she was comparable to Pavilion Master Kang. Pavilion Master Kang was stunned. It was reasonable to assume that the phenomenon behind a Celestial 1-star Master Teacher would be different from a Celestial 9-star Master Teacher. Could this huge commotion really have been caused by that fellow? Shenyuan Kingdom. Dressed in resplendent robes, Mo Yu sat majestically on a throne. After several months of reorganizing, she had managed to bring the entire kingdom under her control. After the news that Zhongshe had become a 4-star Master Teacher reached this region, no one dared to utter the slightest complaint against Mo Yu's sovereignty anymore. There was no one in this kingdom who didn't know of the intimate relationship between Empress Mo Yu and Zhongshe. If anyone were to be so blind as to incite a rebellion, putting aside the impressive fighting force that Mo Yu had under her command, even the Master Teacher Pavilion would surely step in and teach that person a lesson. Dang 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 dang. The officials were currently in the midst of reporting on the various affairs across the kingdom when the loud chiming of bells sounded from the direction of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Astonished, Mo Yu subconsciously stood up. The other officials also turned their gazes over. Every single Master Teacher across Shenyuan Kingdom immediately rushed over to the Master Teacher Pavilion. Everyone was bewildered by the sudden commotion, unable to comprehend what was going on. The same situation also unfolded in Tianwu Kingdom and other regions as well. It could be said that the phenomenon occurred in every single Master Teacher Pavilion under Huanyu Empire. Most people had no idea what was going on, but even those who did had no idea who was the one who had incited it. At the current moment, the culprit behind the uproar finally got to his feet. After the third Celestial Master Teacher came to an end, even though his cultivation was still capped at Consonant Spirit Realm Pinnacle, his comprehension of battle techniques and cultivation had grown even deeper. At the same time, the consonance between his soul and his physical body had become even more perfect as well. Naturally, his fighting prowess had been brought to new heights too. Even though I am still no match for perfect harmonization realm intermediate stage cultivators, there isn't anyone in the primary stage who can rival me anymore. Sensing the difference in him, Zhongxian chuckled lightly. Even though Celestial Master Teacher didn't affect one's cultivation, it broadened one's mind and analytical capability, allowing one to see past the superficial. In a way, it was due to the previous two Celestial Master Teacher acknowledgements that Zhongxian was much calmer than Luo Chichi when facing the puppet earlier. My soul depth actually increased by 3.0. Zhongxian's eyes lit up. His soul depth had actually increased by 3.0, more than it had done the previous 2 times. In other words, his current soul depth was 19.1, which was comparable to even a 6-star Master Teacher. To possess the soul depth of a 6-star Master Teacher despite being in one's 20s. Just the thought of it was frightening. A soul depth increase of 3.0 was equivalent to the leap of an entire Master Teacher rank. If it had been anyone else, it would have taken dozens of years of cultivation to achieve the same breakthrough. Along with the rise in soul depth, Zhongxian's impartation of Heaven's Will and Eye of Insight had grown even more powerful as well. In the past, Zhongxian could only view things that were 2 small cultivation realms above of him. After the rise in his soul depth, it had increased to 3 small cultivation realms. In other words, given his current Zhenqi cultivation of Consonant Spirit Realm Pinnacle, if a Cosmos Bridge Realm Advanced Stage cultivator were to appear before him, he would be able to see through the flaws in the other party's moves through the Eye of Insight even without tapping into the library of Heaven's Path. The improvement in Zhongxian's impartation of Heaven's Will was even more fearsome. Even if it was a 6-star middle-tier Master Teacher, he was confident he'd be able to beguile the other party with his words. The greatest gain from this acknowledgement of Celestial Master Teacher is not the increase in my soul depth or the enhancement of my impartation of Heaven's Will and Eye of Insight. It is Mind of Void. After checking his physical condition, Zhongxian clenched his fists tightly together in agitation. The acknowledgement of Celestial Master Teacher had furthered his various abilities as a Master Teacher, but what left him the most delighted was that his physical body had gained the ability of Mind of Void. Mind of Void, this was a state where one's physical body could move solely on habit, even without a soul or intent driving it. Back when Zhongxian was in the cleansing lake, his soulless body was reduced to a state reminiscent of a corpse, unable to be controlled or moved. However, with the Mind of Void, his physical body was now able to cultivate or even fight without a soul. In fact, without having to go through his mind, the reflexes of his body would be faster than ever. If he were to face that puppet from before once more, he would be able to divide his body and soul to fight separately, thus exerting a far greater prowess than before. This is incredible. With this ability, I'll be able to multitask easily. Zhongxian smiled in delight at his immense gains. At that moment, he suddenly heard a moaning sound beside him. Luo Chichi had recovered from her state of enlightenment. Chapter 670, Genocide Teacher. As soon as she recovered, Luo Chichi immediately got up and clasped her fist. Immersed in her previous state of enlightenment, she was unaware that Zhongxian had gone through a Celestial Master Teacher acknowledgement. However, her understanding toward pill forging and smithing had improved significantly. Her previous talent in smithing could only be considered as slightly above average, but with her current understanding, she was confident that she would be able to best those famous geniuses from the blacksmith school as well. Not bad. Seeing the other party's spirited gaze, Zhongxian knew that the other party must have benefited greatly from her state of enlightenment, so he nodded in satisfaction. No matter what, the other party was his student. As her teacher, he would feel pride at her improvement. Teacher, thank you for your guidance. Luo Chichi knelt down and kowtowed in gratitude. Who? Just as Zhongxian was about to help the other party up, the Library of Heaven's Path jolted, and the Book of Heaven's Path appeared. A golden page was within. Zhongxian had tried to create it previously when he was attacked by the puppet, but to no avail. To think that it would appear now. This is great. With this golden page, he would surely be able to turn that puppet into minced meat and escape without worry. It seems like my conjecture was right. Only gratitude derived from the impartation of knowledge can induce the golden page. Zhongxian nodded. He had won Luo Chichi's gratitude previously by stalling the puppet and allowing her to get away, but the golden page hadn't been produced. All of this was pointing to one fact: only gratitude earned from accomplishing his duty as a teacher would trigger the golden page. Anything other than that was ineffective. Stand up. Since you have managed to smith a weapon with quality exceeding spirit high tier, let's see if you can receive Wu Yangzi's heritage and find the escape route. Seeing the golden page, Zhong Xian's mood lifted. He hurriedly helped the lady up, before flicking his wrist and placing the glacier rain sword on the platform before the crimson blaze cauldron. Jiyaya. Having seemingly assessed that the quality of the sword had met the standard, the stone platform shook, and the voice from the mechanical recorder sounded once more. Congratulations, you have forged a weapon exceeding spirit high tier. As such, you're qualified to become my student, and I'll impart my life's work to you. Who? As he spoke those words, the ground before him trembled, and a stone pedestal slowly surfaced. To think that there was a mechanism below the stone chamber as well. On the stone pedestal, there's a total of 3 objects. First, there is a manual on the forging technique that I created through consolidating the essence of my understanding of smithing, zither forging technique. Second, there is my physical body cultivation technique, quintuple incandescence golden body. Last but not least, my experience here and the exit route. Even though I was trapped here, I didn't feel the slightest anger or hatred at all. Instead, by devoting all of my attention to smithing, I was able to forget my sorrows instead. However, it was a pity that there is a limit to a man's lifespan. My ultimate goal of forging a saint weapon remains out of my reach even as I approach the end of my life, and it will forever remain my greatest regret. I hope that after receiving my heritage, you can accomplish my wish and smith a saint weapon using my zither forging technique so as to appease my soul in the heavens above. This way, I'll be able to rest in peace. If you are willing, make a vow and I'll reveal an important piece of information to you. This information concerns a treasure left behind from ancient ruins, and if you manage to obtain it, there will be no problem reaching sainthood. Reaching sainthood? Glancing at one another, Zhong Xian and Luo Chichi's breathing hastened. Transcendent mortal 9 Dan Chrysalis realm was also known as the embryonic realm, nascent heart realm, or golden core realm. The main purpose of that realm was to gather the entirety of one's cultivation to form an origin embryo. Once the formation of the origin embryo was complete, one would be able to surpass one's limitation and achieve sainthood. The formation of the origin embryo was the final, as well as the greatest, hurdle that transcendent mortals would face, and many found themselves unable to overcome this challenge. Considering how this object provided a ticket to reaching sainthood, its value was indeed immeasurable. I agree. After glancing at Zhong Shi and receiving his approval, Luo Chichi stepped forward and bowed deeply to the pedestal to signify that her acknowledgement as of Grandmaster Wu Yangzi as her teacher. Zhong Xian was Luo Chichi's apothecary teacher. While he did impart the art of smithing to the latter as well, he didn't accept the latter as his disciple, so there were no qualms with her acknowledging another as her teacher. Not to mention, a precious treasure and a heritage were at stake here. After making her vows, the voice in the mechanical recorder finally continued speaking. Since you have made a vow, I will reveal the secret to you now. I have left most of my treasures and the information beneath my old mansion. At the 3 stars of the Earth Dragon, you just have to put down 3 formation flags according to the 3 stars, and the items will surface automatically. The voice came to a halt. 3 stars of the Earth Dragon? Old mansion? Zhong Xian and Luo Chichi stared at one another, and they nearly fainted from anger. Are you taking us for a fool? It has been 2,000 years since you died. Who in the world would know where your old mansion was? Also, what the heck is the 3 stars of the Earth Dragon? Given that this cryptic message was left behind on a mechanical recorder, there was no way they could ask about it, and this only left them even more frustrated. To reveal the existence of a treasure to them but not identify the location clearly, just the thought of it left the duo lightheaded. Considering how Wu Yangzi was captured and brought here, there's no way of telling who would challenge his trial and obtain his heritage. As such, it's understandable that he would speak in riddles. Even though Zhong Xian was frustrated, he could understand the rationale behind the other party's actions. Given that Wu Yangzi was brought here against his will, Any precious treasures that were on him must have been already taken away by his captors. Considering how his captors had the easiest access to this stone chamber, there was a high chance that they would have uncovered this information and claimed the treasure for themselves should the clue be too direct. Zhong Xian couldn't help but ask, "But, where is his old mansion?" "I have no idea either. However, if I recall correctly, Grandmaster Wu Yangzi used to live in Hongyuan capital, the city where Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy is located." Luo Chichi thought for a moment before continuing. "I'll check the records after I return to the academy. It has only been 2,000 years, so I should be able to uncover some traces of it." Zhong Xian nodded. 2,000 years might be a long time to a small kingdom like Tianxian Kingdom, and immense changes could happen to it in that time frame, but to a massive behemoth like Hongyuan Empire, the effects of the passing of 2,000 years wasn't as obvious. Tier 1 empires had Saint Realm experts, and considering how they possessed a lifespan of around 1,000 years, a span of 2,000 years could only be considered as the passing of 2 to 3 generations. Thus, it shouldn't be too difficult to find Wu Yangzi's old mansion. Let's take a look at his heritage. Since they couldn't access the treasure stuck in this underground chamber, there was no use thinking about it for now. Thus, Zhong Xian gestured for Luo Chichi to look at the items on the stone pedestal. Luo Chichi nodded and walked toward the stone pedestal. Of the 3 items that Wu Yangzi left behind, she reached out for the third one immediately, the way to escape from here. Naturally, their survival took precedence over everything else. "Teacher." Luo Chichi passed the book over. Taking the book, Zhong Xian flipped through it casually before a bizarre expression appeared on his face. Seeing Zhong Xian's expression, Luo Chichi's face tensed. "What's wrong, teacher? Is there no way to leave here?" It would truly be a disaster if they couldn't get out, but Zhong Xian smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, there's a way out. It's just that I saw something interesting. It seems like Grandmaster Wu Yangzi is a very different person from how we thought he was." "Different?" Luo Chichi was perplexed. "You should take a look yourself." Zhong Xian passed the book over to Luo Chichi. Confused, Luo Chichi took the book and browsed through it. After she was done, a bizarre expression appeared on her face as well. Having expected this, Zhong Xian chuckled softly. Wu Yangzi was captured and brought to this underground chamber by the otherworldly demons. In other words, this underground chamber was a lair for the otherworldly demons. The otherworldly demons had once enjoyed great prestige ruling over the other races, including the humans. Yet, they had been forced to hide within remote places where the sun didn't reach just to survive. Naturally, they would seek to return to where they had once stood. As such, the first stone tablet inscribed with Yearning Abode Lodge actually reflected their wish instead of Wu Yangzi's. This was the reason why the 3 words carried the unique killing intent of otherworldly demons. This underground chamber was constructed by the otherworldly demons to avoid the pursuit of human cultivators, and it housed dozens of their brethren. Due to the skillful construction of the underground chamber, it didn't feel stifling despite the size of their group. As for why they had chosen to capture Wu Yangzi, the reason was simple. This bunch of otherworldly demons had hidden from the Master-Teacher Pavilion for many millenniums, but due to their limited populace, they could only cross-marry, and this resulted in a degeneration in their genes, thus limiting their ability to reproduce. As such, their populace declined steadily, and they slowly approached extinction. To resolve this problem, they decided to capture Wu Yangzi, who was renowned for his proficiency in smithing and mechanisms then, to temper their bodies and prolong their lifespan. The idea was good, but how could tempering one's body and prolonging one's lifespan be easy? Putting aside how Wu Yangzi was only a 6-star blacksmith, even an 8-star or 9-star blacksmith wouldn't be able to achieve this feat. Otherwise, that person would surely become renowned across the entire Master-Teacher continent, and countless people would flock to him in hopes of prolonging their lifespan. Who would willingly accept death when there was an opportunity to live on? As such, Wu Yangzi was captured and locked within this stone chamber. While it was vast, it did little to reduce the fact that it was a prison. The only way to escape this stone chamber was through the narrow stone door, but so long as someone was guarding it, it was impossible to escape. Losing his freedom, even if he had smithing to accompany him, frustration and loneliness would surely slowly gnaw at him. As such, burying sorrow was incomprehensible. But through this book, Zhongxian learned why Wu Yangzi granted this stone chamber such a name. The otherworldly demons who captured him wanted Wu Yangzi to temper their bodies and prolong their longevity, and that fellow was indeed tenacious. He went through all of the trouble and used every means at his disposal to temper their bodies to make them nigh indestructible. But at the same time, while tempering their bodies, Wu Yangzi also robbed them of their consciousness, turning them into puppets who could only obey orders. In other words, the puppet outside was actually one of the otherworldly demons who kidnapped Grandmaster Wu Yangzi, and it ended up being forged into nothing more than a puppet. Wu Yangzi knew that the otherworldly demons would never allow him to escape, so he designed a mechanism to secretly release the weapons he forged out into the world. He intended for them to trace his location through those weapons and organize a party to save him, but who knew that this wait would take him more than 2,000 years. In these 2,000 years, all of the otherworldly demons, except for those who had been tempered into mere puppets, had all died. This was the reason why the underground chamber seemed to be completely empty when their group entered. Eventually, as Wu Yangzi's lifespan approached its limit, he began to accept the fact that he might not be able to escape, so he decided to leave his heritage here. As for the puppet outside, it was probably the guard in charge of looking after Wu Yangzi's chamber and preventing him from leaving. Considering how all of the otherworldly demons had died out, it was probably still in the midst of fulfilling the last command issued to it. This. Luo Chichi was in disbelief. Wu Yangzi was known to be an upright and honorable man. Who would have thought that he could be so scheming? To actually turn the otherworldly demons that had captured him into puppets, he sure was vicious. In a sense, this was as good as committing genocide. Chapter 671, Slaying the Puppet to forge the otherworldly demons into puppets and implant commands into them such that they would function as ordinary living beings. It would indeed be difficult to tell the difference in the short run. Grandmaster Wu Yangzi probably derived joy from seeing how the otherworldly demons slowly fell into his trap, and gradually, this source of entertainment allowed him to forget his sorrows. Zhongxian chuckled. The human race and the otherworldly demons were mortal enemies. As a renowned blacksmith, Wu Yangzi understood this logic. When he was first captured, he would have surely been filled with indignation and rage. However, as he killed all of them slowly by converting them into puppets, he was surely filled with exhilaration. After all, none of these ancient otherworldly demons were weaker than him. And yet, single-handedly, he turned them into puppets, thus eradicating every last one of them. Just the thought of it could send one's heart pumping in excitement. With such a mission in life, it was no wonder he could forget his sorrows. Judging from the joyful tone in his handwriting, it could be seen that the other party was so elated that it was almost as if he would float into the sky. As for how he managed to convince so many otherworldly demons to be willingly tempered under his hands, thinking that they would become immortal, nothing was written in the book about it, so it was impossible to tell for sure. Nevertheless, Zhongxian deduced that it was probably a gradual change. For example, Wu Yangzi would temper the other party's arms first. Tempering the arms had little impact on one's ability to think, and the primary success would convince everyone else to do it too. Following which, he would move on to the legs, spine, and body. And finally, when everyone had let down their guard, he would temper their heads, thus successfully converting them into puppets. But of course, this was only Zhongxian's conjecture. Without seeing it for himself, there was no way of confirming it. Under the perseverance of Wu Yangzi, the otherworldly demon who sought to lengthen their lifespans, ended up being eradicated instead. According to Grandmaster Wu Yangzi's records, there are at least 20 otherworldly demons in this underground chamber that fell for his ploy, thus ending up as puppets. If this merit were to be reported to the Master-Teacher Pavilion, the reward obtained would be so great that it could ensure the prosperity of a clan for several generations to come, Luo Chichi said. Killing otherworldly demons was a huge merit to the human race, and the Master-Teacher Pavilion offered rewards for it. The higher the cultivation realm and quantity of otherworldly demons killed, the greater the reward. Considering how Wu Yangzi had managed to slay over 20 otherworldly demons of nearly equal cultivation as himself, that was sufficient for his name to go down in history, and the master-teacher pavilion would help look after his descendants for generations to come in reciprocation for his contribution. In fact, so long as he said the word, they could allow one of his descendants to become the emperor of Hongyuan Empire. UN. We'll report this matter to the master-teacher pavilion honestly. As for how they will reward his descendants, that is none of our business. Zhong Xian chuckled. Let's leave first before talking about other matters. Luo Chichi nodded. Based on Grandmaster Wu Yang's description, we have to return to the path we came from. Even though we can't break the dragon-severing lock, there is a mechanism installed on it that we can make use of. In other words, if we wish to break out of this underground chamber, we'll have to get rid of that fellow outside first. Zhong Xian said. The method of leaving this place was recorded in the book. This was a prison, a place to incarcerate Wu Yangzi. Naturally, there wouldn't be side exits installed in this place. Thus, the only way to leave was through the dragon-severing lock. As a Grandmaster blacksmith, Wu Yangzi seemed to have left some kind of mechanism on the lock such that it would be easy for him to get away in the future. However, it's a pity that he never succeeded. Get rid of that fellow? Recalling the fearsome otherworldly demon puppet, Luo Chichi's face paled. Even just thinking about it now was enough to send shivers down her spine. It was swift, strong, and possessed impenetrable skin. There was no flaw that they could exploit against it. Seeing through Luo Chichi's thoughts, Zhong Xian chuckled. Don't worry. We might not have been able to deal with it before, but now, we do have a weapon in our hands. Previously, even though the Library of Heaven's path reflected the location of the flaws of the puppet, Zhong Xian had still been unable to exploit them due to his low cultivation realm. It was similar to an ant attempting to kill a divine dragon. Even if the ant knew the flaws of the dragon, how could it possibly land a fatal blow when it couldn't even bite through the other party's skin? While Zhong Xian knew that the puppet would fall once its head was lopped off, its astounding defense covered for its flaws. Even an attack with Zhong Xian's full might and using his strongest weapon could only leave a shallow cut on the other party's neck. So, how could he possibly defeat the other party? While the Library of Heaven's path allowed Zhong Xian to rival opponents stronger than him, there was a limit to how wide a gap it could bridge. Sometimes, even the opponent's flaw could be way beyond his current cultivation. However, that was then. Now that the Glacier Rain Sword had advanced to become a half-saint weapon, everything was simple. Seeing Zhong Xian pick up the Glacier Rain Sword, Luo Chichi was stunned. Teacher means to fight against it. She knew that the Glacier Rain Sword had exceeded spirit high tier, but how far beyond that still eluded her. Her ability in appraising weapons was still far beneath that of Zhong Xian. Not to mention, given her current cultivation realm, it was perfectly normal for her to have never encountered half-saint artifacts before. I'll tear away the formation later on. You'll have to attract its attention from the front while I sneak to its back to attempt killing it with a single blow. Zhong Xian began going into details regarding the plan of how they would deal with the puppet. This is what you have to do. All right. Hearing her teacher's instructions, Luo Chichi nodded without any hesitation. To guide her to forge a pill and smith simultaneously, and for it to be a success at that, what else could her teacher possibly be incapable of? She walked up to the crimson blaze cauldron and put it in her storage ring. Following which, with a flick of her wrist, she took out a bow and drew an arrow. As the bow she used previously was destroyed by the puppet, she was currently wielding a lower tier one. There was no other choice. This was the only long-range spirit weapon she had in her possession. Seeing that Luo Chichi was ready, Zhong Xian took a deep breath and pushed himself up to the sky. After looking around for a moment, he finally stopped at a certain position before driving his zhenqi and grabbing downward. Woo woo woo. The formation flags were pulled out of the ground, and the originally pitch-black portion of the stone chamber gradually lost its darkness under the radiance of the night illumination pearls. Slowly, the otherworldly demon puppet's huge silhouette came into appearance. Roar. As they saw the figure of the otherworldly demon puppet, the other party also caught sight of Luo Chichi. With a furious roar, it dashed forward frenziedly. Die! Luo Chichi cried out, and arrows immediately rained down upon the large puppet. Ding 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 ding. However, Due to the lacking might behind her arrows, it did little to impede the other party's advance. In fact, none of the arrows pierced through the other party's skin. Not expecting her arrows to be shrugged off so easily, Luo Chichi clenched her jaws and threw her bow at it. Catcher! The otherworldly puppet flung its arm, and the bow shattered. By this moment, it was already standing right before Luo Chichi. With a booming shockwave, its steel fist crushed toward her. If Luo Chichi were to be struck by this outrageously powerful fist, she would surely die on the spot. Seeing that the fist was about to strike her, Luo Chichi's eyebrows shot up, and she immediately flicked her wrist. Dang! With a metallic reverberation, the crimson blaze cauldron which she had just placed in her storage ring appeared before her. There was a small ventilation gap on the cauldron that was used to insert coal into it. The puppet's punch struck precisely into the ventilation gap, and its fist was immediately trapped inside the cauldron. The crimson blaze cauldron was an artifact that Wu Yangzi used to forge his weapon, and even he himself was unable to destroy it. Naturally, the puppet was unable to do so as well. With its fist trapped, the puppet thrashed around furiously, but there was nothing it could do. I succeeded. Seeing that the plan was working, Luo Chichi's eyes lit up. When her teacher shared his plan with her previously, she thought that it would be very hard to put it into action. However, just by following the other party's instructions strictly, she actually managed to do it easily. It was a wonder to her how the other party managed to plan this far ahead. That kind of analytical ability and battle sense was nothing short of monstrous. Voila! Just as Luo Chichi was filled with awe, a cold gleam suddenly flashed across her eyes, and the puppet abruptly staggered. Following which, its head slowly slid to the ground. Unknowingly, her teacher had appeared behind the puppet and lopped off its head with a single slash. How sharp! Seeing how the glacier rain sword easily cut through the other party's neck with a simple cut, Luo Chichi's eyes widened in shock. Even though her appraisal ability wasn't up to par with Zhongxian, she could tell that the might of the glacier rain sword exceeded that of spirit pinnacle weapons. There was no spirit pinnacle weapon that could achieve this feat so easily. Luo Chichi couldn't help but ask, "Teacher, what is the current tier of the glacier rain sword?" Half-saint. There was no reason for Zhongxian to hide it from her either. Half-saint. Luo Chichi's body trembled in astonishment. Even 6-star blacksmiths would be unable to smith out such a weapon, and yet, in that groggy state, she actually succeeded in creating such a weapon. All right. Gather everything that's of any value, and let's quickly leave this area. Seeing Luo Chichi's eyes widening in disbelief, Zhongxian shrugged nonchalantly. At the same time, he also felt a little perplexed. Considering the prestige of the Master Teacher Academy, after all, most master teachers view it as their aim. Why did these few talented students that he met seem so ignorant? After going through so much effort to quench the glacier rain sword, while it was a surprise that the glacier rain sword was able to reach half-saint, it wasn't entirely unexpected. Was there a reason for her to make such a huge fuss out of it? Yes. Unaware of Zhongshi's doubts, Luo Chichi suppressed the astonishment deep within her and put everything that seemed to be valuable into her storage ring. At that moment, she suddenly recalled something. Turning around, she passed a book over to Zhongxian. "Teacher, this is the physical body cultivation technique of Grandmaster Wu Yangzi, the quintuple incandescence golden body, a spirit pinnacle secret manual." The main reason why Zhongxian came with them was because he was seeking Grandmaster Wu Yangzi's physical body cultivation technique. Since they had obtained it now, it was only right for her to present it to him. UN. Zhongxian's finger fell on the book for a moment before retracting it. This isn't right. Since this is Grandmaster Wu Yangzi's personal cultivation technique, I don't think I'll take it after all. You should study hard so as to not let him down. Considering that the quintuple incandescence golden body was a personal cultivation technique of Wu Yangzi's and that he intended to pass it down only to his student, it would indeed be inappropriate for an outsider to learn it. This was the basic respect among cultivators. This. Not expecting the other party to reject it, Luo Chichi's face reddened. She opened her mouth, but she couldn't find any words to say. Before such a precious physical body cultivation technique, others would surely toss aside their etiquette and take it for themselves. Yet, Her teacher actually turned it down. This professionalism and character were indeed worthy of respect. Zhong Laosha, from now onward, you shall be my role model. I shall strive to emulate your behavior, Luo Chichi vowed in her heart. While she was completely impressed with Zhong Xian, at this moment, the latter was currently staring at the quintuple incandescence golden body manual in the Library of Heaven's Path with a bitter face. 78 flaws? The heck? Can this still be called a spirit pinnacle physical body cultivation technique? You must be joking with me. To regard this kind of rotten book as your treasure and pass it down as an inheritance, screw this. Chapter 672, Quintuple Incandescence Golden Body. When Zhong Xian's finger came into contact with the quintuple incandescence golden body earlier, he had already duplicated another one in the Library of Heaven's Path. Thus, it mattered not to him whether he had the physical copy or not. Initially, Zhong Xian thought that given how high-tiered the physical body cultivation technique was, it must be extremely profound and powerful. Who would have known that it would be riddled with flaws? If only he knew how trashy this cultivation technique was, he wouldn't have wasted his time coming here. He would have just gathered the books at Huanyu Empire instead. He was confident he could compile a far stronger physical body cultivation technique with the manuals in Huanyu Empire. In other words, he had gone through so much trouble for nothing. Zhong Xian shook his head in disappointment. However, it was too late for regrets. All he could do was to recoup his losses as much as possible. Thus, he stepped forward to the puppet and placed it in his storage ring. Although the puppet had been incapacitated, considering how tough its defense was, it was likely to have been made out of some kind of valuable ore. Thus, Zhong Xian intended to take it back and examine it properly. Perhaps, he might be able to extract some precious ores from it. Walking out of the stone chamber, Zhong Xian and Luo Chichi walked back through the passageway and into the stone room, where Luo Chichi retrieved her sword. After which, they went back up the stairs, and soon, they were standing before the dragon severing lock. Zhong Xian's finger fell on the location written on the dragon severing lock, and he pressed down lightly. Catcher. The creaking of a mechanism sounded, and following which, the dragon severing lock shook. Is it done? Luo Chichi's eyes lit up as she walked forward to push the lock. However, despite exerting so much force that her face was turning red, the dragon severing lock showed no sign of moving at all. Zhong Xian frowned. As a transcendent mortal 6-dan pinnacle expert, Luo Chichi wielded strength exceeding 6,200,000 ding. It was one thing for her to be unable to open the dragon severing lock when it was sealed, but given that the mechanism had been activated, why was she still unable to move it? Let me give it a try. Frowning, Zhong Xian stepped forward and pushed with all his might. Boom. Harnessing the strength of his physical body, soul, and zhenqi together, a force exceeding 9 million ding was exerted against the dragon severing lock. But even so, the huge boulder still remained completely motionless, as though it was perfectly stuck to the ground. This. Retracting his arms, Zhong Xian frowned in confusion. It can't be that the mechanism has stopped working after 2,000 years. According to the book left behind by Wu Yangzi, as long as the mechanism was activated, the dragon severing lock should have been able to be knocked open. But if that was the case, why wasn't it budging even though they had put so much strength into it? This shouldn't be the case. If the mechanism was really broken, the both of them would be doomed. Even a Saint Realm cultivator would find it hard to break the dragon severing lock, let alone them. Was their only way out gone, just like that? It is recorded in the book that even after triggering the mechanism, the dragon severing lock still can't be opened normally. One will have to exert pure physical strength to push it open. Once the mechanism senses the presence of zhenqi, it'll automatically deactivate. Taking Wu Yangzi's book out once more, Luo Chichi read with a grim expression. Pure physical strength. Zhong Xian was taken aback. Indeed. The mechanism against the dragon severing lock is made out of a unique material which is exceptionally sensitive to zhenqi. Grandmaster Wu Yangzi probably did it this way so as to prevent the otherworldly demon from noticing and exploiting the mechanism. The killing intent that the otherworldly demon emanates possesses properties similar to zhenqi, so even if they were to notice the mechanism, they would still be unable to open it, Luo Chichi said. I see. Zhong Xian's eyes lit up. Given Wu Yangzi's meticulous personality, it was indeed possible for him to design such a mechanism. Even if an otherworldly demon were to obtain his heritage, it would still be unable to leave this underground chamber alive, thus frustrating it to death. I'll give it another try. With this conjecture in mind, Zhong Xian retracted his soul and zhenqi cultivation, and using just the might of his muscles, he pushed the dragon's severing lock with all his might. Jeji, Jeji. The dragon severing lock groaned, but Zhong Xian was still unable to open it. I don't have sufficient strength to open it. I'll help you. Luo Chichi walked over, and the duo pushed the dragon severing lock together. However, it still didn't budge. This meant that their combined strength was still insufficient. However, the groaning sound did indicate that their line of thought was right, it was just that they were lacking sufficient strength to push open the dragon severing lock. Even though we failed to open it, the mechanism seems to be working. The only option for us now is to quickly raise our physical strength. Zhong Xian frowned. Even though he could summon his clone, and with the combined might between him and his clone, it should be possible to open the dragon severing lock. However, his clone was made of a god artifact, and he didn't want anyone to learn of its existence yet. Once his clone's existence was made known, it was possible that others might doubt Yangshi's existence, and the matter of him practicing the arts of a soul oracle would likely be exposed as well. Raise our physical strength. Teacher means that we should cultivate the quintuple incandescence golden body. Luo Chichi was taken aback. UN. It is very likely that this is another test from Grandmaster Wu Yangzi. If we can't even cultivate the quintuple incandescence golden body, it is likely that we will be unable to fulfill his wish of forging a saint weapon. And since our words are an empty promise, he would rather that we remain here to accompany him. Zhong Xian analyzed. Wu Yangzi was indeed an extremely thorough person, having taken into account every single possibility. But considering how he was the man who managed to dupe so many otherworldly demons into offering their heads to him, it didn't really come as a surprise. Otherwise, he would probably have been killed by the otherworldly demons. Cultivate right now? Luo Chichi's face was plagued with dilemma. A physical body cultivation technique cannot be mastered within a single day. It requires many years of hard work. Are we going to be trapped here for that long? Just like normal zhenqi cultivation techniques, physical body cultivation techniques also required many years of diligence for one to achieve mastery. If they had to learn the quintuple incandescence golden body before they could leave, how long would that take? What if they never succeeded in it? Would this underground chamber really be their final resting place? Seeing Luo Chichi frown, Zhong Xian hesitated for a moment before he asked, other than the quintuple incandescence golden body, do you have any other physical body cultivation technique manuals on you? Not knowing why her teacher would ask such a question, Luo Chichi was dazed for a moment before replying. Other physical body cultivation technique manuals? I do have quite a few, but none of them can be compared to the quintuple incandescence golden body. Possessing a strong physical body was one of the requirements for becoming a 5-star apothecary and 5-star blacksmith. As such, she did possess quite a few physical body cultivation technique manuals on her. However, none of their grades could match the quintuple incandescence golden body. Allow me to take a look. Zhong Xian had only asked that question casually, not expecting to receive a positive answer. His eyes immediately lit up in delight. All right. Knowing that her teacher must have an idea in mind for asking for them, Luo Chichi flicked her wrist and placed a few piles of books on the stairs without any hesitation. There were probably around a few hundred books within the pile. There are so many of them. Not expecting the other party to be carrying so many books on her, Zhong Xian's eyes lit up. He hurriedly brushed his fingertip across all of them. Actually, it was a friend who helped me collect all of these. Back then, when I was striving to become a 5-star blacksmith, my physical body was still too weak. So, a friend gave all of these to me. Luo Chichi said awkwardly. Despite Princess Yu Fei's difficult personality, she still had many pursuers. Given Luo Chichi's appearance, it was natural that she would have no lack of pursuers either. Back then, when she failed the 5-star blacksmith examination, A senior in the blacksmith school who was pursuing her gathered all of these physical body cultivation techniques and gave them to her. She had been wanting to return them to the other party since then, but she hadn't found an opportunity yet. Since her teacher needed them now, she brought all of them out. Good. After collecting all of the books into the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhongxian stood up and muttered compile. Who? A brand new quintuple incandescence golden body appeared in the Library of Heaven's Path. Zhongxian quickly flipped it open, and amidst its content, there were only 4 errors. Great. Zhongxian chuckled in delight. He was still troubled over the excessive flaws in the quintuple incandescence golden body manual previously, but after assimilating the content from the other physical body cultivation technique manuals from Luo Chichi, he was able to make up for most of the flaws. Even though there were still 4 flaws remaining, they were negligible. With this, he would surely be able to strengthen his physical body to the required level within 2 hours. Let's return to the stone chamber first. The stone chamber was narrow, dark, and damp, which weren't conditions suited for cultivating. Thus, the duo returned to the stone chamber, and sitting down, they began cultivating. Understanding her teacher's intentions, Luo Chichi flipped open the quintuple incandescence golden body. An introduction to the technique was written on the first page. The quintuple incandescence golden body wasn't created by me. I found it when I was roaming through ancient ruins. There is a total of 5 levels to the technique, and they are otherwise known as the 5 incandescents. Upon mastering the technique, one's physical body will be imbued with a 5-colored light, granting one immense might. However, this technique is extremely difficult to cultivate, and even I have only been able to reach the 3rd incandescence. After taking a look, Luo Chichi couldn't help but feel impressed. Honestly speaking, the person who created the cultivation technique was indeed a genius. She had seen many geniuses and formidable master teachers in the Master Teacher Academy, and she had heard of many different physical body cultivation techniques as well. However, none of them seemed to be able to compete with this one. But while the quintuple incandescence golden body was indeed strong, it was difficult to cultivate as well. Putting everything aside, to reach the 2nd incandescence and beyond, one would require some supporting materials to temper their body with. Even though Luo Chichi had plenty of pills and medicinal herbs on her, none of them fulfilled the requirements. Forget it. I shall cultivate the 1st incandescence and leave this place first. Putting all other miscellaneous thoughts aside, she began to browse through the content of the 1st incandescence. To master the 1st incandescence, one has to be able to gather the full might of one's body. It will take at least 2 years for a genius to achieve major accomplishment, while those who are less talented can easily take more than 10 years. Such a sentence was written in the very first paragraph depicting the 1st incandescence. 2 years. Luo Chichi's mouth twitched. If she were to be trapped here for 2 years, the entire school would probably think that she was dead. Furthermore, this was still assuming that she possessed an affinity for the cultivation technique. If she lacked talent in it, wouldn't they be trapped here for 10 years? What am I thinking all of this for? I should focus my attention on cultivating. The faster I master the technique, the earlier I'll be able to leave this underground chamber. Luo Chichi shook away other miscellaneous thoughts from her head. Clenching her jaws, she began to memorize the formula for the 1st incandescence. Soon, just after she managed to memorize the content and was just about to decipher and cultivate it, Zhongsha suddenly stood up. Let's go. Where? Luo Chichi was taken aback. She hadn't even started cultivating yet. Where were they heading to? To leave. Do you not want to leave? Zhongxian shot her a perplexed expression. Luo Chichi was completely confused by the situation before her. Of course, I want to leave, but we aren't able to open the dragon-severing lock with our current combined strength. I have barely memorized the 1st incandescence of the quintuple incandescence golden body, and I haven't started cultivating yet. Zhongxian shook his head. It's all right, I have already mastered it. Mastered it? Luo Chichi was taken aback. What does that mean? At that moment, the duo was already standing right before the dragon-severing lock. Zhongsha raised his arm and abruptly exerted an immense force on the dragon-severing lock. Wang! A bright light emanated from his body, and with a Gia, the dragon severing lock opened. Quintuple incandescence golden body. First incandescence. What is going on? Luo Chichi's body trembled, she felt like she was about to go insane. I thought you didn't read that cultivation technique manual? What in the world was going on? Chapter 673. As good as dead. It was just a moment ago that she offered this secret manual to Zhongshe, but the other party turned it down, saying that it would be inappropriate for him to take a look at it. But right after, as she was completely impressed by such noble behavior, the other party actually exerted the might of the quintuple incandescence golden body. So, did you look at the book or not? Wasn't it written that even geniuses would require at least 2 years to master? But how long has it been since we started cultivating? To have remembered the content and finished cultivating within such a short period of time. Teacher, are you Zhongshe or a reincarnation of Wu Yangzi? Luo Chichi was completely dumbfounded by the sight before her. It felt as though her understanding of the world was being overturned entirely. Leaping by the dragon-severing lock, Zhongxian realized that the young lady was still dazing off within the passageway, so he turned around and beckoned her. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Walking out of the passageway, Luo Chichi couldn't hold back her curiosity anymore, so she asked, Teacher, did you just use the quintuple incandescence golden body? I guess it could be considered that way too. Shaking his head, Zhongxian explained with a displeased expression, I didn't intend to learn it, but due to the urgency of the matter, I had no choice but to do so. This physical body cultivation technique is rather troublesome to cultivate, so I modified it a little. Even so, significant flaws still remain in it, so I've only cultivated to the first incandescence. Zhongxian was truly frustrated. Initially, he was still delighted that there were only 4 flaws, but it turned out that he was sorely mistaken. The 4 flaws just happened to be that he would require various rare materials in order to cultivate the second, third, fourth, and fifth incandescence. For example, he would require the earth flame heart to reach the second incandescence, and for the third incandescence, he would require origin heavy water. When cultivating the Heaven's Path golden body, he only required Heaven's Path Shanqi. When had he needed the support of external materials before? To still require so many items even after compiling a few hundred physical body cultivation techniques with it, this was truly damned. It was fortunate that he could master the first incandescence through just using his Heaven's Path Shanqi, or else he would surely have died of frustration. While he was displeased by his situation, Luo Chichi was about to go insane. Modified it slightly. Significant flaws still remain in it. This is a spirit pinnacle cultivation technique, or perhaps, it might even be beyond it. I have just barely finished reading through the first incandescence, and you are already done understanding, modifying, and cultivating it. To even pick on the flaws in the technique on top of that. Are you teasing me? I have seen many incredible geniuses and experts, but never have I seen one as absurd as you. Luo Chichi's mouth twitched violently as vertigo struck her. She felt that there was nothing that Zhongshe was incapable of. It seemed as though doing the impossible was the norm for him. They aren't out yet. Have they left already? Just as Luo Chichi was shocked speechless, she heard the voice of the young man. Shifting her gaze, she saw that Zhongshe had already walked ahead and was currently standing before the other stone door. A deep frown was etched on his forehead. Yu Fei, Xing Yuan, and the others had passed through this stone door to enter another passageway. Considering how they spent almost 16 hours inside their passageway, they thought that the others would be out by now. But contrary to their expectations, there was not a single face to be seen amidst the dim radiance from the night illumination pearl in the vast underground chamber. Had they left already, or were they still stuck inside? Luo Chichi's heart skipped a beat. Tossing away all other thoughts, she hurriedly rushed up to Zhongxian. After examining the area, her expression turned grim. It seems like they aren't out yet. Otherwise, they would have surely come to look for us. Furthermore, the locations where the night illumination pearls are scattered are still the same. This means that it is highly likely they are still inside there. Given her understanding of Yu Fei, the other party would have surely have come to look for them as soon as she left the passageway, or at the very least, she would have notified them through the night illumination pearls. However, given that there was no trace of them in this vast underground chamber, it could only mean that the four of them were still trapped beyond the stone door, unable to leave. Since she was able to deduce this much, Zhongxian, who possessed the Eye of Insight, was naturally able to do the same as well. At this moment, he was staring at the stone door with a perplexed expression. But this door isn't locked with the dragon-severing lock. Why aren't they out yet? It's not. Luo Chichi walked forward to push open the door, and it opened up easily, revealing a flight of stone steps downward. Unlike their passageway, this one wasn't sealed with a severing dragon lock. In other words, Luo Chichi and the others could have left whenever they wanted. But if that was the case, why weren't they out yet? A thought suddenly struck Luo Chichi, and her eyes widened in fear. Grandmaster Wu Yangzi said that the stone chamber, where we were previously, was a cell used to incarcerate him, and this side was the living quarters of the otherworldly demon. Considering how a group of otherworldly demons were forged into puppets under his hands, could it be? Wu Yangzi had converted more than 20 otherworldly demons into puppets, but there was only a single one in the stone chamber previously. Assuming that all of them were still functional, Zhongxian's face twisted in shock as well. Let's go and take a look. Even though he didn't possess much goodwill toward Yu Fei and the others, he didn't bear them any hostility either. He couldn't just stand idly when they were at risk of being ripped into pieces by the otherworldly demon puppets. Yuan, knowing that her close friend was in danger, Luo Chichi dared not hesitate. She quickly followed behind Zhongxian and headed down the steps. Just like in the other, this passageway was cold and damp as well. The recording from the stone bridge earlier on said that one could only enter one door. While this door wasn't sealed by the dragon-severing lock, if one were to venture this path, one would be lynched by many otherworldly demon puppets simultaneously, making it impossible for them to return. On the other hand, if one were to go through the other door and fail to obtain the heritage, one would be doomed as well. And if one managed to obtain the heritage, one would learn that the other passageway led to the otherworldly demon's nest, and no sane man would possibly venture down this path after learning that. In retrospect, the previous decision was actually a choice between life and death. I can only hope that they are fine. Grasping his glacier rain sword tightly, Zhongxian slowly proceeded down the passageway. Had he known that it was so dangerous, he would have surely stopped them no matter the means. If the four of them were to really die here, he would feel guilty his entire life. After advancing a moment longer, they finally approached the end of the steps, and another huge underground chamber unfolded before them. Zhongxian turned to Luo Chichi and said, "It'll be too conspicuous if we were to enter together. You should wait for me up there, I will enter alone." "Teacher." Luo Chichi was taken aback. "You're currently still too weak, and you don't have any escape means either. If something really has happened to them, we will only be leaping to our doom pointlessly if the both of us enter together. But if they are fine, trust me, I'll surely bring them out," Zhongxian said. If someone were to follow him, he would be unable to utilize a lot of his secret means. Thus, it would be better if Luo Chichi were to head up first. After a moment of hesitation, Luo Chichi clenched her jaws and nodded. All right. She was indeed too weak to be of help at the moment. Considering how she couldn't even wound the otherworldly demon puppet, all she could do was run for her life if she were to encounter one. Not to mention, it was likely that they were going to face more than one this time around. If they were to get entangled with them, they might very well lose their lives here. Even though Zhongsha managed to kill the previous otherworldly demon puppet, a huge part of the reason was due to the other party being immobilized by the Crimson Flame Cauldron. Otherwise, in a direct battle, there was no way that it would expose its neck to him. "Teacher, you must be careful. No matter how the others are, you must first ensure your own safety," Luo Chichi said worriedly. "Don't worry, I can fly. Even if I can't defeat them, fleeing isn't a problem at all," Zhongxian replied. "Yuan. I'll wait for you outside then." Hearing those words, Luo Chichi suddenly recalled the various astonishing feats that Zhongxian had achieved, and her worry alleviated slightly. She nodded before turning around to leave. A moment later, she disappeared amidst the darkness. After Luo Chichi left, Zhongxian didn't enter the underground chamber straight away. Instead, he sat down and took in a deep breath. Who? His soul tore away from his body. If there were really 20 or so of the otherworldly demons he met previously, it would be difficult for him to escape even if he was capable of flying. After all, his flying altitude was severely limited by the ceiling. If all of them were to rush for him simultaneously, it would be nigh impossible for him to avoid them. Thus, he decided to utilize his soul to scout the area instead. Due to the intangible and invisible nature of a soul, it would be hard for even the otherworldly demons to notice it. Who? As soon as Zhongxian's soul left his body, he immediately rushed into the underground chamber. There were a few night illumination pearls in the underground chamber that Xing Yuan and the others had scattered. Despite the dimness, Zhongxian could still clearly see the situation around him. Looking around, this underground chamber was much larger than the stone chamber Wu Yangzi had been locked in. Even when gazing across the horizon, the end couldn't be seen. As it was meant to serve as the living quarters of the otherworldly demon, infrastructures were positioned neatly alongside one another. If not for the gloomy darkness, one might have even thought that one had stepped into a city. No wonder the otherworldly demons were able to survive for more than 10,000 years here. Zhongxian nodded. In the end, the otherworldly demons did spend dozens of millenniums here. It would be hard to believe that it would be designed shabbily. Thinking so, Zhongxian followed along the trail of light. There was no doubt the night illumination pearls were left behind by Yufei and her group. As long as he followed the source of light, it would surely lead him to them. There are signs of battle. Proceeding a little further, Zhongxian's face darkened. Under the light of the night illumination pearls, he could see many collapsed buildings and a slight trace of blood on the ground. Clearly, a fight had just occurred here recently. Eye of insight. Lines of insight flowed in Zhongxian's eyes as he studied the battle traces. 14 hours ago. It must have been left behind by them. The Eye of Insight was a technique triggered by driving his soul depth, so he was able to activate it even as a soul. Through studying the traces left behind here, he was able to deduce when it was left behind. Most likely, Yufei and the others encountered something not too long after entering the underground chamber and fought against it. But if that is the case, why is it so silent here? Are they already dead? Zhongxian thought. Since a battle had occurred, Yufei and the others should have encountered the otherworldly demons. If they were still alive, they should still be in the midst of a battle. Yet, the underground chamber was completely silent. Zhongxian's face darkened. He immediately examined the surroundings and saw a few sets of flurried footprints on the ground. These footprints weren't too big, revealing that they were left behind by a human. These are their footprints. Having gone through the third celestial master teacher acknowledgement, Zhongxian's Eye of Insight was stronger than ever, allowing him to easily notice the slight footsteps above the layer of dust on the ground. Zhongxian quickly traced the footsteps, but not too long later, he abruptly halted. Jeji, Jeji. The sound of someone's footsteps sounded not too far away. Under the light of the night illumination pearls, Zhongxian saw a massive otherworldly demon puppet walking over with large strides. This fellow was around the same size as the puppet whom he slew not too long ago. Its skin was also grey, as if it was coated with a layer of metal alloy. Zhongxian's soul cultivated the Heaven's Path soul art, so unlike other souls, his body didn't emanate yin energy. As such, the otherworldly demon puppet didn't notice him. It simply rushed by him. Following which, a few other otherworldly demon puppets also soon followed behind it. There are so many otherworldly demon puppets here. To actually meet with 8 otherworldly demon puppets before he could find Yufei and the others, Zhongxian's heart pounded nervously. Given how many otherworldly demon puppets were here, Yufei and the others were as good as dead. Chapter 674. Finding Yufei. These puppets were pulsating with immense energy that was equivalent to the one he had met in the stone room. Judging from the looks of it, even a Saint Realm expert would be killed even if he came here. Luo Chichi and Zhongxian had nearly died dealing with just one. It took them careful planning and much effort just to get rid of it. To encounter 8 at once. With an awful complexion, Zhongxian proceeded forward. Boom 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 boom. A while later, the ground suddenly started shaking relentlessly with a peculiar rhythm. Zhongxian frowned. The shaking was forceful, reminiscent of shock waves emanated in a clash between experts. However, what was bizarre was the constant short interval between each tremor. Nevertheless, this trace of battle raised Zhongxian's hopes. Could it be that they are still holding on? Zhongxian's eyes lit up. Even though the otherworldly demons had been forged into puppets under Wu Yang's hands, they possessed no emotions or irrationality that would make them fight one another. The only possibility was that Yu Fei and the others were still alive, and they were still fending them off. But those were Saint Realm puppets. How did Yu Fei and the others manage to survive for so long? Speeding up, Zhongxian flew to where the tremors were originating from. In the midst of his journey, he saw yet another 3 puppets walking in a straight line, similar to the ones he had seen previously. This is already the 17th one. Making a quick count of the puppets he had encountered, Zhongxian's face darkened. It was fortunate that he hadn't come here in his physical body, or else it would have been no joke if he had been surrounded by these guys. While his cultivation had advanced greatly in recent times, and he had the Library of Heaven's Path behind him, he knew his own limits. He might have gotten past a Saint Realm expert by hoodwinking the other party with his words before, but against lifeless puppets who only followed instructions, he knew that death would be the only outcome from an encounter with them. Something is wrong. If Yu Fei and the others are still alive, why are these puppets walking away instead of encircling them? As Zhongxian encountered more and more puppets, a seed of doubt slowly sprouted in his mind. After noticing that Yu Fei was still alive, those puppets should have been rallying one another to deal with them. Why would they be walking away instead in such an orderly fashion? Even though Zhongxian was confused by the situation before him, he continued to advance at top speed. Zhongxian didn't dare to fly too fast for fear of inducing any significant reverberations in the air from his movement. After advancing for around another 8 minutes, he finally arrived at the source of the tremors. Along the way, he had seen many scars of battle as well, but they were of a relatively smaller scale compared to the first ones he encountered. Most likely, they were trying to fend off the otherworldly demon puppets as they retreated. The fact that he had yet to see their corpses yet meant that there was a good chance that they were still breathing. To be able to survive so long against so many Saint Realm otherworldly demon puppets, they were indeed formidable. They are over there. After taking a detour around a high-rise building, Zhongxian noticed that the source of the tremors was right before him. Quickly raising his gaze to take a look, a vast square appeared before his eyes. It covered an area of several dozen mu, and stationed at the very center was an altar. Most probably, it was a tool they used to pay respect to their ancestors or the heavens back when they were still alive. 15 mu, almost equal to a hectare, bizarre symbols were inscribed on the altar, leaving one with overwhelming dizziness just by looking at it. There were various peculiar statues erected around the altar. They resembled a fusion of various beasts, forming an extremely sinister sight. A powerful killing intent emanated from the statues, inducing a cold shiver down one's spine. They are still alive. As Zhongxian's gaze fell on the center of the altar, his eyes lit up. Over there, a barrier of light was erected, and 2 otherworldly demon puppets were striking it ceaselessly. This was where the tremors were coming from. In the barrier of light, Yu Fei, Xing Yuan, and the others were seated cross-legged at the very center. Their faces were pale, and their bodies were drenched in fresh blood. It seemed like they had suffered grievous wounds while attempting to escape from the otherworldly demon puppets. What an incredible trump card! Looking at the barrier of light, Zhongxian was impressed. To be able to fend off the relentless attacks from 2 Saint Realm puppets, the resilience of the barrier was indeed incredible. It probably belongs to Yu Fei or Xing Yuan. Considering the standing of those 2, it wouldn't be surprising for them to possess such means up their sleeves. Realizing what was going on, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. As the princess of Hongyuan Empire, it was natural that she would carry a lot of defensive artifacts so that she could protect herself in face of danger. Otherwise, due to her exceptional identity, it was unlikely that her family would be willing to let her venture out alone. On the other hand, given how Xing Yuan could pursue the princess so openly, his family background was likely to be exceptional as well. While their artifacts might not be sufficient for them to fight against the otherworldly demon puppets, it was sufficient for them to stand their ground temporarily. But this barrier of light seems to be on the verge of crumbling. Zhong Xian frowned. No matter how powerful an artifact may be, it was limited by the amount of energy stored within it. Taking his dragon scale protective amulet for example, while it was able to withstand an attack with the full might of a transcendent mortal 9-dan, it was only limited to 3 uses. While the barrier of light that the 4 were in was able to withstand the relentless attacks from the 2 puppets, its light was dim, and it seemed like it was going to break apart soon. And once it did, it would spell the moment of their doom. I must find a way to save them. The current situation placed him in a dilemma. If he were to instruct them to dispel the barrier of light, the 2 otherworldly demon puppets would surely rush straight at them, and Zhong Xian had no confidence in bringing all of them out alive with them on their trail. But if the barrier of light wasn't dispelled, they would be trapped here. What could be done at this moment? Furthermore, what puzzled Zhong Xian the most was that, judging from where the otherworldly demon puppets which he'd encountered on the way here were heading from, they were probably at this altar before. Why did the rest march away, leaving only 2 of them here? If all of them were to strike the barrier of the light together, it would have surely shattered by now. Assessing the situation a while longer, Zhong Xian was still unable to make sense out of the situation. Thus, he decided to drift a little closer to the barrier of light to get a better look. Why is there a corpse in there? Moving forward, he saw Yu Fei, Xing Yuan, Wu Zhan, and Yi Qian were seated shoulder to shoulder in a circle at the center of the barrier of light, and seated at the center of the 4 of them was an old man. Even though there was no visible damage to the body of the old man, his withered and emaciated body revealed that he was long dead. A thought suddenly emerged in Zhong Xian's mind. Could this be Grandmaster Wu Yangzi? For a human corpse to appear here. Putting the clues together, the old man should be Wu Yangzi. When Zhong Xian couldn't find Wu Yangzi's corpse in the stone chamber previously, he had already been a little perplexed as to where it could be. From the looks of it now, the corpse had been here all along, and somehow, Yu Fei and the others had managed to find it, and they were currently guarding it. Of course, it was also possible that the corpse was guarding them. It was impossible for Zhong Xian to determine whether the barrier of light came from Yu Fei's group or Wu Yangzi. While Zhong Xian was assessing the situation carefully, cold sweat was dripping down the faces of Yu Fei and the others. Panting deeply, Xing Yuan said with a pale face, 6th princess, it seems like we won't be able to get out this time. There was a glaring wound on his chest. Even though he had already applied some recovery medicine, fresh blood still kept oozing from it, forming a rather frightening scene. We'll probably die here. Wu Zhan's face also darkened. They had all thought that it would be a simple mission. All they needed to do was to confirm the existence of the underground chamber where Wu Yangzi once stayed in. Who knew that this seemingly simple mission would actually lead them to so many formidable puppet? Chased all the way here, if not for Yu Fei's ample supply of defensive artifacts, they would have already died a few hours ago. At the very least, we chose the correct passageway. This is indeed where Grandmaster Wu Yangzi lived previously, and we even found his corpse. Yu Fei harumphed. Amidst this despair, this was the only consolation she received. At the very least, she managed to best that smug Zhong Xian once. Since Grandmaster Wu Yangzi's corpse was here, it could only mean that they had found the right place. Her greatest regret now was that she wasn't able to see the smugness wiped out of that fellow's face. You're right. Xing Yuan nodded weakly. Then, turning around to Yu Fei, he asked, 6th princess, since we're already on death's door, can you tell if you have ever liked me? Seeing as the barrier of light continued to grow thinner and thinner, Xing Yuan knew that it was a matter of time before it shattered. Thus, he was unable to suppress the greatest question in his mind anymore. He had been pursuing this lady for a very long time already, but the other party had never reciprocated his feelings. Now that they were on the verge of death, he wanted to at least know the truth so that he could rest in peace. Hearing those words, Yi Qian and Wu Zhan immediately turned their heads away awkwardly. Not expecting Xing Yuan to ask such a question, Yu Fei opened her mouth, but she soon bit her lips. After a long moment of hesitation, she shook her head. I have already told you that before I become a 6-star master teacher, I'm not interested in engaging in any romantic relationship. She had an extremely competitive nature, and she had always wanted to prove herself to others. As such, romantic relationships were something at the back of her mind. Even though Xing Yuan had been pursuing her for some time now, her heart had never skipped a beat for him. I knew it. I didn't stand a chance from the start. Hearing such direct words from the other party, Xing Yuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Then, are you interested in Zhong Xian? Recalling that shameless face on that detestable young man, Yu Fei clenched her jaws in anger. Zhong Xian? How could I possibly be interested in that despicable and shameless fellow? I must be mad before I can possibly fall in love with such a guy. She was a princess, a member of nobility, and yet the other party dared to force her to become his maid and serve him tea. If only that was all. When she went to reason it out with him, he even kicked her bottom twice. She had never seen someone as ungentlemanly as him. If not for the fact that she wasn't able to defeat him, she would have long rushed over to crush that man with her hands. Zhong Xian, who was loitering around the barrier of light to find an opportunity to save the group, heard Yu Fei's evaluation of him, and he staggered. I am such an upright, kind, and magnanimous person. How in the world did I become a despicable and shameless man? Just like the wise sages of the past once said, woman and hypocrite are the two most difficult species to please. Such is indeed the case. Hearing her furious howls, Xing Yuan wasn't delighted in the least. Instead, he shook his head in disappointment. The more ferociously you berate him, the greater the place he has in your heart. I have known you since we were little, and it has been more than 20 years since then, but have I ever occupied a space as big as him in your heart? When I said we weren't able to leave earlier, the first thing that came to your mind wasn't fear but that you have won a bet against him. Even in this desperate situation, all she could think of was Zhong Xian. From this fact, he knew that despite his years of pursuing her, his standing in the other party's heart couldn't even compare to that fellow she had just met. Yu Fei froze upon hearing those words. Was she really in love with that fellow? But how could it be possible? All she wanted was to rid herself of her identity as a maid and teach that shameless fellow a lesson. Affirming her intentions inside once more, just as she was about to verbalize them to Xing Yuan, a voice suddenly drifted into their ears. Cough cough. This isn't the time to be flirting with one another. You should be discussing how you can get away instead. Hearing that voice, Yu Fei's eyes widened. Zhong Xian. Chapter 675. Beating heart. Right after calling out that man's name, Yu Fei's face turned crimson, and she quickly shook her head in denial. How can he possibly be here? Considering the duration they had been fleeing for, they were at least several kilometers into the depths of the underground chamber. On top of that, there were many otherworldly demon puppets patrolling the area, ready to take out any intruder. Most important of all, that fellow had clearly entered the other passageway, so how could he possibly appear here? There was no doubt about it, she must be hallucinating. Right after she reaffirming that she would never fall in love with that despicable fellow, she actually hallucinated his voice and thought that he would come to her rescue. How embarrassing. It was just a passing remark, none of you heard a thing at all. Got it? Yu Fei harumphed furiously with a threatening edge in her tone. Cough cough. Wu Zhan and the others glanced at one another before replying, Princess, it seems like we heard those words as well. You all heard those words too? Taken aback, Yu Fei quickly scanned her surroundings anxiously. But other than the two puppets which were still striking the barrier of light relentlessly, there wasn't anyone aside from them. Since all of us distinctly heard his voice, it is unlikely to be an imagination on our part. Xing Yuan nodded. While he did detest Zhong Xian, it was still consoling to hear the other party's voice at this crucial moment. Seeing that the other party actually doubted his existence after he had spoken, he shook his head helplessly and continued transmitting his voice to them. All right, none of you are hallucinating. I'm indeed Zhong Xian, and I am here to save you all. My physical body is still outside, and I am currently using a secret art to transmit my voiceover. As he couldn't reveal that he was a floating soul at this moment, this would expose his identity as a soul oracle. He could only explain it by this. If you're outside, could this be transmission over 1,000 li? Xing Yuan and the others widened their eyes in shock. One must know that not even a transcendent mortal 8 Dan could possibly transmit his voice so clearly over several kilometers. Could it be that Zhongxian already possessed such immense strength? Seeing that Zhongxian was aware of their situation and intended to save them, Yu Fei heaved a sigh of relief and asked, "How do you intend to save us? Do you have an idea in mind?" This fellow might be hateful, but he did possess incredible capabilities. Otherwise, how could she possibly have been bullied so many times and yet still be helpless against him? It's precisely because I don't have any ideas that I'm here to discuss this matter with you, Zhongxian said. He really had no idea in mind. His soul might have been able to sneak in without catching anyone's notice, but if he were to attempt to bring the others out, they would surely be surrounded and killed before they could get far. Discuss. If we had an idea in mind, we would have already escaped from this darned place long ago, Xing Yuan said with a darkened face. His spirits had lifted after hearing Zhongxian's voice, but who would have thought that the other party was as lost as them? All right. Why don't you all tell me the situation here in depth? This will help me find a viable solution to your current plight. For one, I saw quite a few puppets walking away from your direction when I was scouting around just now. Under normal circumstances, they should have all gathered here to get rid of you together. Why did they walk away, leaving only these two here? Zhongxian raised the doubt that had been plaguing him all along. If all of them were to attack at once, the barrier of light would have shattered long ago, and this group would be cold corpses by now. While the puppets didn't possess intelligence, it was reasonable to think that they were programmed to encircle and defeat any intruders into the underground chamber. After all, the puppet he had met in the stone room before had pursued him frenziedly, threatening to grind him into meat paste. As such, how could they possibly let such a huge group off? Perhaps there might be some fundamental logic to it. If he were to exploit this, he might be able to find a way to save the group. Not too long after we entered this underground chamber, we encountered those otherworldly demon puppets. We were immediately overpowered by them, and they deliberately blocked the way back to the passageway. Thus, we could only retreat deeper into the underground chamber while fending them off. Yi Qian swiftly explained everything that happened. Right after walking down the flight of stairs, they immediately saw this underground town, so they quickly rushed to it excitedly, thinking that they had found a vital clue. Who could have thought that they would meet with the otherworldly demon puppets not too long later? That was also the region where Zhongxian first found the traces of battle. Surrounded by a group of Saint Realm puppets, they were naturally not a match at all. It was fortunate that Xing Yuan and Princess Fei possessed many valuable artifacts on them. Hurling them out while retreating, they managed to fend the enemies off. Even so, they were still severely injured through the many encounters. Fleeing all the way to the altar, they happened to find Wu Yang's corpse and triggered the mechanism he had left behind. It was then that the barrier of light emerged, and they got a moment of breather. Meaning, this barrier of light was indeed an artifact left behind by Wu Yangzi. It was probably a means to prevent his corpse from being defaced by the otherworldly demons after his death, but who could have known that it would unintentionally save the juniors who came searching for him 2,000 years later? However, judging from the current state of the barrier, it was unlikely to last too much longer. After hearing Yi Qian's works, Yu Fei harumphed. Who said that those fellows didn't gather here in an attempt to get rid of us? All 20 of them were here a moment ago, or else the barrier of light couldn't possibly wane so quickly. Just that, for some reason unknown to us, they left abruptly. It wasn't that those fellows didn't come to encircle them, but that they were unable to break the barrier and left. Who knows when they will return? All of the defensive artifacts they possessed were depleted. Once the barrier of light shattered, they would lose their only protection. Even if Zhongxian was here to support them, it was still highly unlikely that they would be able to escape. You said that they left after attacking the barrier for a moment. Zhongxian frowned. That didn't make sense at all. If those fellows had continued, the barrier of light would have shattered by now. Why would those puppets march off during such a crucial moment, leaving only 2 of them to continue? The group nodded. When did they leave? Zhong Xian asked. Around 10 minutes ago or so. Yi Qian said. 10 minutes ago? That's around the time that little Qi and I left the underground chamber. Frowning, a thought suddenly surfaced, and Zhong Xian's face darkened. Could it be that these fellows found out that he had breached the other passageway, and were heading over to support their ally? If that was the case, he would be in great danger. His physical body was still hidden in the passageway near the entrance of the underground chamber. If he were to be noticed by them, wouldn't his body be smashed into pieces? Give me a moment, I'll look around and figure something out. His physical body was of the greatest importance to him now, he couldn't allow anything to go wrong with it. Not to mention, if his physical body were to be ruined, there was no way he could help Yufei and the others out of their current plight. Thus, leaving behind these words, he immediately rushed off. Hey! Hey! As his voice slowly faded, the surroundings grew silent once more. Yufei shouted in panic a few times, but she didn't receive any response. Infuriated, she smacked the ground with her fist. What the heck was that? He was here to save them, and yet he disappeared without doing anything at all. What was he up to? Zhong Xian couldn't be bothered with the resentment that was piling up on him at the moment. His soul rushed all the back to the passageway at the quickest speed possible. It was due to his fear of being noticed that he moved slowly previously, but given that it was likely that his physical danger was in danger now, he couldn't bother about that anymore. Soon, he arrived back at the flight of stairs. There are no puppets here. On the stone steps, his physical body was still meditating quietly by the corner, untouched by anyone. Was I wrong? He thought that the other puppets were rushing to aid their ally in the other underground chamber after learning that it had been breached by intruders, but that didn't seem to be the case. Zhong Xian scratched his head in confusion. Clone. Who? Releasing his clone, Zhong Xian placed his physical body into his storage ring. While his physical body couldn't survive for too long in the storage ring, this should be the safer course of action for the moment. Naturally, the ring was left with his clone. Even though his clone had proven to be unreliable on many occasions, the might of the 9 Hearts Lotus wasn't for show. Those otherworldly demon puppets might be formidable, but it would still be extremely difficult for them to kill his clone. At the very least, his clone should be able to ensure the safety of his main body. Wait here for me, I'll take a look to see what the puppets are up to. At the very least, I'll be able to prepare for whatever they are up to. After instructing his clone, Zhong Xian's soul flew into the depths of the underground chamber once more. Given that those puppets weren't going to the other underground chamber, they must be up to something. Otherwise, they couldn't possibly let Yufei and the others go. Thus, Zhong Xian felt that there was an imperative need for him to uncover what those fellows were up to. After flying for a moment, Zhong Xian saw the first wave of puppets once more. They were currently moving to the corner of the city. What are they doing there? The corner of the city wasn't lit up by night illumination pearls, so it was pitch black. Nevertheless, the puppets marched on tirelessly, disappearing into the darkness swiftly. Eye of Insight. With the Eye of Insight activated, the pitch-black area suddenly became visible to his sight. The Eye of Insight wasn't just capable of seeing through facade, even darkness couldn't conceal its vision. Examining the surroundings closely, Zhong Xian continued following the puppets forward. Very soon, the puppets left the city and arrived before a stream. It's probably connected to the stream I saw above. Zhong Xian's eyes shot up. To think that the stream above would actually flow through this area as well. However, what were they planning to do here instead of attacking Yufei and the others? Voila! In the midst of Zhong Xian's confusion, one of the puppets stepped into the river. Jeji! Jeji! As soon as the puppet stepped in, a series of gears clicked, and a round pedestal appeared in the middle of the stream. As soon as the round pedestal surfaced, an overwhelming killing intent immediately filled the surroundings. The blast of overpowering killing intent induced an immense pressure weighing down on Zhong Xian's soul. To think that the killing intent even affects souls? Zhong Xian quickly drove the Heaven's Path soul art, and only then did he finally recover from the impact. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He was currently a soul, possessing no shape and no form. Who knew that the killing intent emanated from the surfaced round pedestal would be so powerful that it nearly caused his soul to plummet to the ground? The scale was completely incomparable to the living otherworldly demon that Hongsha caught. What in the world is that? Gathering more lines of insights in his energy, Zhongxian focused his gaze on the round pedestal. Even without thinking, it was clear that there was something wrong with the current situation. On the round pedestal, there was an object around the size of the watermelon. It contracted and expanded at a constant frequency, creating a loud rumbling noise reminiscent of thunder along with its movements. A heart. Zhongxian's body froze. He was doubtful at first, but the more he looked at it, the more apparent it became to him that the object placed at the center pedestal was a crimson heart. Why was there a heart here? And more importantly, how was it still beating? Just as Zhongxian was perplexed by the situation before him, he saw the puppet which leaped into the water kneeling before the round pedestal. Hoo. Along with the beating of the heart, spiritual energy was drawn from the stream by the heart and infused into the puppet. The worn-out puppet immediately became energized once more. The puppets are recharging their energy. Zhongxian clenched his fists in agitation. Chapter 676. Reduced to a lump of meat, even a cultivator would eventually find himself drained and exhausted after fighting for a long period of time, needless to say, a puppet. These puppets were installed with a spirit-gathering formation in their bodies, and they relied on absorbing the spiritual energy from the surroundings or from spirit stones to move. Thus, if they were to overexert themselves, it was possible for them to stop functioning due to lack of power. This explained why the 20 or so puppets left shortly after attacking the barrier of light. It seemed that they had overexerted themselves by striking the barrier of light with their full might relentlessly, and thus needed to recharge themselves. This underground stream is actually a spirit vein, and it gathers the spiritual energy from the meandering mountain range that spans 1,000 kilometers. There is indeed sufficient spiritual energy contained in the stream to replenish the energy in those puppets, but even so, it shouldn't be easy for the puppet to absorb the spiritual energy in the stream so easily and quickly. There's something very weird about the heart. Just as a cultivator couldn't possibly restore their zhenqi to their full capacity in an instant, a puppet also needed some time to recharge itself. To recover completely within a few breaths was downright absurd. Most probably, this ridiculous situation must have something to do with the heart. In the first place, it was already bizarre that a heart overflowing with killing intent would actually be placed within a stream of spiritual energy. Furthermore, there was something very sinister about this heart that seemed to send endless chills down Zhongxian's spine as he looked at it. This eerie sight was triggering all of his alarms. Goo. While Zhongxian was still examining the beating heart in bewilderment, another otherworldly demon puppet stepped forward. Along with the beating of the heart, it recovered its strength. It'll be disastrous if this goes on. Seeing the otherworldly demon puppets regaining their strength one by one, Zhongxian's heart beat in anxiety. If he didn't do anything, it wouldn't be long before all of the puppets recovered and returned to attack Yufei and the others. Should that happen, the latter would definitely die here. I must bring Yufei and the others out of here before all of these puppets regain their strength. Zhongxian clenched his fists together grimly. In truth, this could be considered as an opportunity as well. Most of the puppets were currently busy recharging here, and it would take some time before they would return. This was probably the only chance he was going to get to save them. Once the other puppets returned, there would be nothing more Zhongxian could do. But even if that is the case, I am still unable to defeat the 2 remaining puppets to save Yufei. While Zhongxian knew that he had to firmly grasp this opportunity, the might of the 2 remaining otherworldly demon puppets was simply beyond him. Not to mention, if a fight were to occur, it was likely that the disturbance in the spiritual energy in the air, as well as the shock wave from the trading of blows, would catch the attention of the other puppets as well. Chances were the puppets would encircle them before they could get away from this underground chamber. The main reason why Zhongxian was able to kill the previous otherworldly demon puppet in the stone chamber was due to assistance from Luo Chich's side, and the apt usage of a valuable artifact, the Crimson Blaze Cauldron. Given that neither Luo Chichi nor that artifact were here, it was nigh impossible for Zhongxian to slay two otherworldly demon puppet. In the end, his options were restricted due to his low cultivation realm. Right, I could do that. Just as Zhongxian was rubbing his glabella in frustration, an idea suddenly streaked across his mind. Carefully analyzing and fixing the various aspects of his plan, his eyes slowly grew brighter and brighter. After confirming that it was feasible, his soul immediately flew off. He didn't head off to the altar where Yu Fei and the others were waiting. Instead, he quickly returned to the passageway to return his clone to his storage ring before wrapping his soul energy around the ring and carrying it to a remote, narrow alley within the city. Then, he summoned his clone and a humongous corpse out from his storage ring. The humongous corpse consisted of two parts, a head and a body. It was the otherworldly demon which he had decapitated back in the stone chamber. Possession. Zhongxian took in a deep breath before his soul dived into the puppet's body. Hula. Similar to the soulless metal humanoid, these puppets were forged out of real bodies as well. Thus, it wasn't too difficult for his soul to enter the body. Just that, due to the overwhelming killing intent infused within the body, only a person who cultivated the Heaven's Path soul art like Zhongxian would be able to enter such a body. Any other soul oracle would have had their soul dissipated before they could even come into contact with it. Jeji. As soon as Zhongxian's soul seeped into the body, the puppet on the ground twitched, and it began to struggle to its feet. It's indeed possible. Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. Just as Zhongxian was considering how he should save Yu Fei and the others, he'd suddenly recalled the existence of this corpse in his storage ring. Even though the puppet's head was lopped off, that wouldn't hinder its ability to house a soul. As long as Zhongxian could possess it, he should be able to move it. Perhaps, he might be able to fool the otherworldly demon puppets through this and save Yu Fei and the others. The possessed puppet bent down to grab his head and place it on his neck. Then, it began to shake its limbs to adapt to the new body before running off to the altar excitedly. But barely after taking a few steps, peng, the puppet crashed into a pillar, and its head rolled far into the distance. The puppet immediately fumbled its way to its head, picked it up, and installed it on its neck once more. Typically speaking, it would be impossible for anyone to tell that the puppet was currently possessed. However, due to the puppet's head having been severed before, it could fall off very easily, and that would be a dead giveaway. I'll have to support it then. If the puppet's head were to shake on top of its neck while moving around, Zhongxian would surely be exposed. Thus, he could only helplessly raise his palm to support his head while making his way to the altar. The place he was hiding at previously wasn't too far from the altar, so it didn't take him too long to arrive there. We're doomed. Yu Fei and the others were waiting expectantly for Zhongxian to arrive and save them, but who knew that an otherworldly demon puppet would appear instead. Their faces immediately sunk. The barrier of light was already on the verge of shattering under the combined offense of the two puppets. With one more here, their fates were sealed. Just that, there was something very peculiar about this puppet. Its head was tilting unnaturally to one side, and it seemed as though it would fall if not for a hand placed by its head to support it. It was an extremely eerie sight. The unnaturally bent head puppet soon arrived before the barrier of light, and it tapped on the shoulders of the two puppets who were still striking the barrier. The two puppets ceased their attacks and turned to look at the two. Roar. The bent head puppet pointed to his back, and tracing his finger, Yu Fei and the others saw a human figure sneaking toward them under the dim light granted by the night illumination pearls. Zhongsha. After taking a close look at the other party's appearance, Yu Fei and the others began to panic. What the heck is that foolish man trying to do? If you want to save us, you should at least try learning how to hide your presence first. To actually stand right before a night illumination pearl like that, aren't you just waiting to be discovered? More importantly, after being noticed by the puppet with the bent head, not only did you not flee immediately, you even continued to advance forward. Does hell really interest you so much that you are bent on charging right into it? You aren't trying to save us, you are trying to court death. Roar. Naturally, the other two puppets also noticed Zhongxian. Roaring furiously, One stepped forcefully against the ground and charged toward him. Against that fearsome charge, Zhongxian's face immediately paled in shock. He immediately tried to escape, but there was no way he could possibly outrun a Saint Realm puppet. Thus, he was struck squarely in his head. Peng! His face caved in as if a donut, and his body went flying through numerous buildings. Zhongshe! Zhongxian! Not expecting that their savior would have his head crushed before he could even reach them, the bodies of Xing Yuan, Wu Zhan, and the others trembled, and they nearly fainted from shock. It wasn't too long ago that the other party proudly declared that he would save them, and yet, he was killed as soon as he made an appearance. This was probably the most anticlimactic rescue operation of all time. Yu Fei's eyes turned red upon that sight, and with quivering lips, she bellowed anxiously, "Aren't you supposed to be formidable? I haven't won against you in a bet yet, you can't die like that. What the heck is this? Weren't you quite formidable when you were bullying me? Why did you become so weak before these puppets? How could you allow your head to be smashed in just like that? Shouldn't you have at least learned your lesson after accidentally reducing your body to a mere corpse while cultivating in the cleansing lake?" The others also shook their heads in disappointment. They weren't in the position to grieve over Zhongxian after all, they were next. On the other hand, the puppet who smashed Zhongxian's head in turned around and returned to the barrier of light after eliminating the intruder. However, before it could get far, the bent-head puppet pointed to its back once more. Frowning, the puppet turned around, only to see the fellow from before standing before it in an upright position. While his face was caved in and his legs were shaking, he was standing firmly on the spot. Ah! This! Xing Yuan, Wu Zhan, and the others who had just given up all hope widened their mouths in shock. To be able to stand up after his head was caved in to such an extent. "Are you serious?" The dumbfounded Yu Fei mumbled in a daze, "He isn't dead." Recalling something, through her quivering red lips, she muttered, "Did he get possessed by some spirit again?" A similar situation had occurred back at the cleansing lake. Back when their attention had been captured by something else, his lifeless body had secretly crept back into the lake. Could it be that history was repeating itself? After all, how could a person whose face was caved in like that possibly stand up once more? Being possessed in itself was completely inconceivable already, and yet for it to happen twice to the same person within such a short period of time. Just how many vengeful spirits have you offended? Roar. The ridiculous scene left even the emotionless puppet stunned for a moment. But after which, it immediately dashed forward and kicked Zhongxian. Peng! Under the might of the powerful kick, Zhongxian's ribcage broke, and his chest sunk inward. Once again, he crashed through many buildings, disappearing amidst a cloud of dust. Confident that it had managed to slay Zhongxian this time around, the puppet nodded in satisfaction. However, right after turning around, it saw the puppet with the crooked head pointing behind it with a look of fright yet again. Turning its head around anxiously, the puppet saw an upright silhouette with a sunken chest amidst the cloud of dust. Its hands were placed against its waist, as if nothing had happened at all. Yu Fei, Xing Yuan, and the others were already completely stupefied by the sight before them. All of them slapped their cheeks tightly to confirm whether they were in a dream or not. What the heck was going on? His face was caved in, and his chest was sunk in, and yet he was still standing. What kind of sorcery was this? Who? Not expecting the fellow to still be alive after 2 consecutive strikes, the puppet roared furiously and dashed forward, striking Zhongxian relentlessly with its fists and kicks. After a short moment, Zhongxian was completely disfigured. Half of his head was blasted off, his body was crushed and had become almost as thin as a slice of a paper, and his bones had been reduced to dust. Only after that fellow was reduced to just a lump of meat did the puppet finally end its attacks. Satisfied, it turned around and walked back. But yet once again, the puppet with the bent head pointed behind it. Roaring furiously, it turned its head around and saw that figure which had been crushed into something without the slightest resemblance of a human standing up once more. His crushed arms were placed weakly against his waist, and his eyes were filled with mockery. The heck? Is that really Zhongshe? How in the freaking world can he still be alive after all that? I must be dreaming. Yu Fei, Xing Yuan, Wu Zhan, and Yi Qian were completely overwhelmed by this madness. Considering how a part of his head had been blasted away and the tragic state his body was in, it should be physically impossible for Zhongxian to stand up at all. This was probably not as simple as a mere possession. Not even a spirit could possibly make this lump of meat stand up once more. Chapter 677. Thank you, Zhongxian, Sixth Princess. You are the most knowledgeable of us here. Do you know what is going on? Gulping down a mouthful of saliva, Xing Yuan asked. Aye. At this point, Yu Fei was on the verge of tears. As a princess, she had access to many secret manuals exclusive to the royal family, and she was also exposed to many unique techniques in the world. But even so, she couldn't imagine a single technique in the world that could allow a person to stand up after being reduced to a lump of meat. What about you? Xing Yuan turned to Wu Zhan and asked. Given how the latter specialized in mechanisms, he might be able to see the secret behind this peculiarity. Wu Zhan's lips quivered as his face twitched violently. He specialized in mechanisms, not cryptozoology. How could he possibly know what was going on? While the few of them were rendered completely insane by the turn of events, the two puppets were also frenzied by the scene before them. To still be able to stand up after all of that, are you still a human? Hoo. The bent-head puppet seemed to be frightened by the sight before it. He immediately patted the shoulder of the second puppet by the barrier of light and pointed to that monstrous fellow, gesturing it to head over there to support the first puppet. The puppet hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. Following which, it immediately dashed for Zhongxian. The overpowering killing intent of the two puppets overlapped with one another, thus exerting a formidable pressure on those before their presence. However, as soon as the second puppet came heading for him, Zhongxian immediately turned around to flee. With a swift leap, he disappeared into the darkness. Roar. Not expecting the other party to still be able to flee so quickly despite being reduced to such a state, the two puppets were astonished. They immediately rushed forward to pursue him, and before long, they disappeared into the depths of the darkness as well. On the other hand, staring at the escaping Zhongxian, Yu Fei and the others were dumbstruck. Since you are able to flee, what the hell were you doing just now? To leave only after you are reduced to such a state, what is going through your mind? Hurry up. Lift the barrier of light and leave. Just as the few of them were bewildered by the situation, Zhongxian's voice sounded. Stunned, they immediately looked in the direction where the voice came from. To their shock, it actually came from the bent-head puppet. Zhongshe. The group stared at the puppet before them with perfectly widened eyes. Yes, it's me. I managed to lure the both of them away with a special art. Hurry up and leave with me. Otherwise, it'll be too late once the other puppets return. The bent-head puppet urged anxiously. Are you really Zhongshe? Even though the voice was definitely Zhongshe's, the savage expression on the puppet made it hard to put the both of them together. Not to mention, they had just seen him getting smashed into a lump of meat. How did he become a puppet in the blink of an eye? Even the most proficient disguiser wouldn't be that exaggerated. I really am him. You lost a bet to me, and you are currently still serving as my maid. There was no time for them to waste. Knowing that it was normal for the other party to suspect him given his current appearance, Zhongxian immediately tried to validate his credibility. He turned Xing Yuan and said, back at the cleansing lake, you came to look for me, asking me to admit my defeat. Fine, I believe you. You are Zhongxian. Yu Fei's face reddened whereas black lines streaked Xing Yuan's face. There weren't many people who knew of Yu Fei becoming a maid, and the matter regarding Xing Yuan asking Zhongxian to admit defeat on the bet was known only by the two of them. Thus, these served as sufficient evidence to prove that the puppet was indeed Zhongshe. After affirming the other party's identity, Yu Fei raised her hand and grabbed onto something, and the barrier of light vanished. Let's go. Knowing that there was a limit to how long his clone could distract the two puppets, Zhongxian immediately led the way while holding onto his head. But after taking 2 steps, he realized that no one was following him, thus, he turned around, only to see the 4 of them still seated on the ground with pale faces. What's wrong? He asked with a frown. Our wounds are more severe than we thought. We aren't able to move at all, Xing Yuan said awkwardly. The other party had spent so much effort planning this operation to save them, and yet they were unable to run away due to their severe injuries. The entire group felt that they had let Zhongxian down. I don't think we'll be able to get away, so please bring Grandmaster Wu Yang's body back with you. Tell the academy that we have accomplished our mission, and that we didn't let the academy down, Xing Yuan said with clenched jaws. It was at least 7 to 8 kilometers to the passageway. Given their severe injuries, they would surely be caught before they could reach it. Since it was impossible for them to get away, they would rather Zhongxian bring back the corpse. At least, this would bring some value to their deaths. What is the use bringing a corpse back? Not expecting that fellow to utter such words at such a timing, Zhongxian shook his head. Of course, this action caused his head to fall down yet again. Hurriedly picking it up and implanting it on his neck, he turned to look at Wu Zhen and asked, "Do you have any wine?" "Wine?" Wu Zhen was taken aback for a moment before nodding. Flicking his wrist, he took out a gourd. He enjoyed wine, so he often carried such wine gourds along with him. Zhongxian caught the wine and kept it in his storage ring. Following which, he established a connection with his main body he was currently storing inside the storage ring. His Heaven's Path Shenqi was contained only within his main body, so he couldn't infuse it in through just his soul. If it was before, he would have to bring his main body out and have his soul enter it first before he would be able to infuse Heaven's Path Shenqi into the wine. However, having achieved Mind of Void, his physical body was able to move even without a soul in it. Gu 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 gu. After infusing 7 to 8 surges of Zhenqi into the wine gourd, Zhongxian took it out from the storage ring and passed it to Yu Fei. "Drink a few sips." Yuan. Even though she didn't know what he was up to, she knew that this wasn't the time for questions. Thus, she immediately uncorked the gourd and drank it without any hesitation. As the rich wine went down her throat, she felt a warm flow surging through her body. In less than 2 breaths, the excruciating pain she was suffering from turned into a mere numbing sensation, and the gaping wounds from before had healed completely. This. Looking at her recovered body, Yu Fei was stunned. Could this be the saint recovery medicine that Wu Zhen talked about? It was actually so formidable. She quickly passed the wine gourd for the other 3 to drink, and soon, they were all fully recovered. "Xing Yuan, keep Grandmaster Wu Yang's corpse. Let's go." Seeing that everyone had recovered, Yu Fei quickly instructed before the group hurriedly followed behind Zhongxian. Having recovered their strength, they moved at a swift pace. The only problem they met was that Zhongxian would have to support his head carefully so that it wouldn't accidentally fall off his neck. "We need to speed up." Left with no choice, Zhongxian decided to just grab his head in front of his chest and charge forward. Even though his soul wasn't perfectly compatible with the puppet, he was still able to bring out a significant degree of the puppet's Saint Realm strength. With just a single leap, he would be able to cover a long distance. Yu Fei and the others had to push themselves to the limit just to be able to catch up. In a short moment, the 4 of them had already covered 3 kilometers. The passageway was slowly getting closer and closer to them. "Everyone, hurry up. We'll be safe once we escape from the passageway," Zhongxian urged. The narrow entrance of the passageway would be perfect for Zhongxian to set up his 6-star formation and block the otherworldly demon puppets, thus allowing everyone to escape safely. Roar. Just as they were fleeing with all their might, they suddenly heard a furious roar in the air. It seemed like the puppets had finally noticed that they were missing. Along with that roar, shadows suddenly flashed across their surroundings, and the puppets who were recharging at the stream earlier appeared before them, blocking their path of advance. Damn it! Zhongxian's face darkened. He had been rushing all along in fear that these fellows would return after they were done replenishing their energy. Who knew that despite his efforts, he would still be dozens of breaths late. What do we do now? Not expecting that they would be surrounded by so many puppets after escaping this far, Yu Fei and the others turned ghastly pale. They were only able to escape previously due to their numerous defensive artifacts hindering the attacks of the puppets. Now that they were all consumed, how could they escape from this encirclement? Roar. Zhongxian stepped forward to explain, but a puppet rushed forward to kick him instead. Peng! His head and body immediately separated, both crashing heavily onto the ground. These puppets are actually able to discern friend from foe even among themselves. Zhong Xian narrowed his eyes. Zhong Xian was currently in the body of an otherworldly demon puppet. Even though his head could fall off any time, his outer appearance was no different from the others. Under normal circumstances, the other puppets shouldn't be able to recognize Zhong Xian, and he would be able to blend in as their peer. Who knew that he would be struck without any hesitation? Without a doubt, the puppets were able to determine their enemy. Weren't puppets a type of mechanism which didn't possess self-intelligence? How could it differentiate between an enemy and an ally? Damn it! Pushing itself up from the ground, the headless puppet charged toward the one which attacked it. A strong gust of wind whooshed, and immense might poured forth from his fist. Peng! The opposing puppet met the fist of the headless puppet with a fist of his own, and the headless puppet was immediately knocked flying once more. Even though the puppet was strong, Zhong Xian's current soul cultivation realm was only at consonant spirit realm pinnacle, thus preventing him from drawing upon the full strength of a saint realm. Naturally, he wasn't a match for the other party. Jeji. While Zhong Xian was clashing with one of the otherworldly demon puppets, the others were slowly closing in on Yufei and the others. It seemed as if they would charge forward to kill the latter at any moment now. If this continues, they will surely die. With his current form as a soul, it was still possible for Zhong Xian to escape. However, if he were to do so, Yufei and the others would be killed the next moment. What should he do? Was he supposed to give up after going through all that effort? Forget it, I'll gamble everything on this then. Just as Zhong Xian was at a complete loss, he suddenly recalled that large beating heart he saw previously, as well as the respect the puppets showed it. An idea suddenly popped into his head. Since you all want to kill us, let's go down together then. I'll crush the heart right now. Bellowing furiously, the puppet which Zhong Xian was controlling immediately leaped up and dashed straight for the stream. Roar! 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 Hearing Zhong Xian's bellow and his direction of movement, the puppets were stunned for a brief instant before a streak of insanity infected every last one of them. Their attention were immediately torn away from Yufei and the others, and they hurriedly pursued Zhong Xian. You all should leave right now, there's no need to worry about me. Seeing those fellows pursue him, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He turned to Yufei and the others and howled. Zhong Shi! Zhong Xian! Not expecting Zhong Shi to draw away all of the puppets single-handedly just so that they could get away, Yufei, Xing Yuan, and the others felt their hearts tightened, and their eyes reddened in agitation. If they were harboring some grudges or even envy toward him previously, all that was left now was gratitude. In order to save them, the other party willingly put himself in a position of grave danger. It was no wonder why Zhong Shi was so deeply respected by his students and deeply trusted by the group from Hongfeng Empire. His character was indeed worthy of respect. Zhong Shi, thank you. We mustn't waste this opportunity Zhong Shi created by putting his life on the line. Let's go. Gritting his teeth, Xing Yuan and the others quickly fled to the passageway. Chapter 678, Zhong Xian is dead again? For them, Zhong Shi willingly lured away the puppets away into the depths of the underground chamber, using himself as bait. If they were to remain here and allow themselves to be killed, they would truly be letting everyone down. With eyes filled with indescribable, intense emotions, they exerted strength beyond their limits, and in just a few dozen breaths, they arrived at the passageway once more. Looking into the distance, the underground city seemed to have been blanketed by a cloak of darkness. The dim light from the night illumination pearls could no longer be clearly seen from their current location. Roar, 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 boom, boom, boom. Vaguely, the shouts of the otherworldly demon puppets and the sound of objects shattering could be heard. Knowing that the passageway wasn't safe either, just a single puppet here would be able to clear away all of them, Xing Yuan said. This place isn't safe, let's go up first. Zhong Shi should have an escape plan in mind. Yuan, knowing that they would be of no help even if they were to wait here, the crowd headed up, and before long, they were standing at the entrance of the passageway. Luo Chichi, who was waiting on top, immediately rushed up to welcome the group excitedly upon seeing them. "You've all finally returned. Are you all fine?" "We're fine." There wasn't the slightest bit of relief or joy one should have after escaping from danger on Euphea and the others' faces. Instead, they kept subconsciously sending worried gazes into the passageway. "What's wrong?" Noticing their peculiarity, Luo Chichi frowned. Then, she suddenly realized something, and her body froze. "Where is teacher?" "He." Xing Yuan clenched his fists tightly in agitation, and with a lump in his throat, he said hoarsely, "In order to save us, he used himself as bait to lure all of the otherworldly demon puppets away." "Bait?" Luo Chichi's face immediately drained of all color. "How many puppets are there? If there is only one or two, teacher should still be able to escape." Her teacher possessed incredible means. If it was only one or two puppets, he shouldn't be in too much danger. With an ashen face, Xing Yuan said, "There are more than 20 of them in there." "More than 20? Luo Chichi felt as if her heart had been plunged into an ice chamber. She trusted her teacher's capability, but it was still impossible for him to stand against so many puppets single-handedly. It took the both of them a great deal of effort to deal with a single puppet from the previous stone chamber. In the process of doing so, the two of them nearly died as well. To face more than 20 simultaneously, this was no different from suicide. "No. I must go and save teacher." Gritting her teeth in determination, Luo Chichi rushed into the passageway. However, before she could get far, Euphea stopped her. "Chichi, calm down. Zhongsha had put himself into such a predicament just to save us. If you were to go in now, won't all his effort have been for nothing?" Even though Euphea was panicking inside as well, she understood Zhongsha's intentions, and that was why she was holding herself back. They were simply too weak at the moment. Even if they were to rush in, they would be of no help at all. Luo Chichi trembled in agitation, and beady teardrops slowly flowed down her white cheeks. Even back at the stone room, in order to let her get away first, her teacher chose to fight against the puppet single-handedly, despite the risk of death. And now, to save Euphea and the others, despite knowing that it was a lair of otherworldly demon puppets below, he still rushed in without any hesitation. And now, he even allowed himself to serve as bait so that the others could get away. "Teacher, how can we ever repay this debt to you?" "Luo Chichi, we understand your feelings, but do you think that you are the only one who wants to rush in and save him? But if we were to do so, we would only be letting down the expectations and feelings Zhongsha has entrusted to us." Xing Yuan stepped forward and said, "There's only one thing we can do now, that is to wait here patiently for his return. Let's pray that he can create a miracle once more." As a talented student of the Master Teacher Academy, he was able to see the crux of the matter easily. As 5-star Master Teachers, they were by no means weak. But against those puppets, their strength would be no different to throwing an egg against a rock. With their current cultivation realms, there was only one outcome that would arise from rushing in: death. Indeed, Zhongsha will have a higher chance of survival alone. If we rush in, not only will we not be of any help, we might even become a burden to him. Yi Qian added. A trail of tears flowed down Luo Chichi's cheeks as she replied with quivering lips, "I understand." She did understand all of this in the depths of her heart. After all the time she had spent with her teacher, she was well aware of what of person her teacher was. Her teacher was a person who would choose his morals over his life. It was exactly this quality that made him respected and admired by so many people. She knew deep down that the others were right. If she were to barge in now, she would only become a burden to the other party. "The best we can do for Zhongsha now is to wait here." Seeing that Luo Chichi had finally given up the thought, Xing Yuan nodded. But at that moment, his body suddenly shook. Hong long long. Cracks started appearing on the bridge, and the river beneath abruptly raged. What is happening? The group was taken aback. Why would there be such an intense tremor all of the sudden? Voila! Just as they were perplexed, fragments of rock suddenly began falling from the ceiling. The bridge and the passageway leading down into the underground chambers collapsed instantaneously. This is bad. The entire underground chamber is going to collapse. Xing Yuan narrowed his eyes as he yelled, "Quick, go out. If the underground chamber were to collapse on them, they would be buried alive. No one would be able to save them." Thus, without any hesitation, they immediately dashed for the passageway out of the underground chamber. Moving at their top speed, they were able to return to the mountain valley within 7 to 8 breaths. As soon as they were out, they suddenly felt another huge tremor, and a huge part of the valley's ground suddenly caved in, forming a large depression. It was as if everything that had happened was a dream. The underground chamber had disappeared entirely without a trace. "Teacher." Luo Chichi's legs finally caved in, and she fell weakly to the ground. If there had still been a chance that her teacher would be able to get out previously, how could there still be any hope now? Yu Fei's face also paled, and she sat down feebly beside her close friend. She had been competing with Zhongxian all along, wanting to beat him in a bet. But never had she wanted him to die. Not to mention, all of this only happened because the other party was trying to save them. Recalling bits and pieces about that fellow, she suddenly felt that she was very immature. In the end, all the prejudice she had against the other party was due to her indignation at being ignored. In truth, after witnessing the other party's formidable strength and vast knowledge, even the haughty her couldn't help but admire him as well. After a short moment of silence, Yi Qian clenched his fists tightly and declared, "I'll return to the royal palace and get my father to send troops over here. Even if we have to overturn the entire area, we must save Zhongshe." After hearing those words, Yu Fei also stood up resolutely, prepared to leave with Yi Qian. "That's right. I'll accompany you. If Yi Wentian doesn't dispatch any troops, I'll report this matter to my father." At this moment, her mind was only filled with a single thought. He mustn't die. "The both of you can't go." Just as the two were about to leave, Xing Yuan dashed forward to block them. "What are you doing?" Narrowing her eyes, an aura of hostility began rising from Yu Fei. The full might of a transcendent mortal 6-Dan Cosmos Bridge Realm cultivator burst forth instantaneously, carrying fearsome power that caused even the air to moan in fear. The reason she lost to Zhongxian previously was due to the latter's attacks being aimed at her vitals, thus preventing her from utilizing her full strength. But against Xing Yuan, she wouldn't face such a problem. "I don't intend to stop you, but, have you thought the matter through?" Not expecting the 6th princess to actually intend to fight him, Xing Yuan's face turned ghastly white. Gritting his teeth, he said, "This underground chamber involves both Wu Yangzi and the otherworldly demons. Do you know what consequences will arise if this news were to spread?" "Screw the consequences. Get out of my way," Yu Fei roared. "Xing Yuan is right." At this moment, a soft but affirmative voice sounded. Luo Chichi stood up and walked over, her body still trembling slightly. If even a single one of the otherworldly demon puppets in the underground chamber were to be unearthed, it could potentially eradicate the entire Huanyu Empire. Many lives would be lost. "I believe that this isn't what teacher would hope to see either." Yu Fei tightened her fists in frustration. Teacher is a compassionate person. Since he is willing to give up his life for you all, how could he possibly bear to see millions of lives being lost like that? Luo Chichi said with reddened eyes. A Saint Realm puppet was already a formidable existence, and an army of 20 of them was nothing short of destructive. No Tier 2 empire could possibly stand against such a force. Even if Emperor Yi Wentian were to send every last soldier in Huanyu Empire over, they would still be unable to save her teacher. Only a real saint could do so. If they were to let the puppets loose while attempting to save her teacher, he would never forgive them, not even in death. This was because he was simply such a noble person. "Then, what should we do?" Yu Fei asked anxiously. "What we must do now is to quickly return to the Master Teacher Academy and report this matter to the elders so that they will come here to handle the matter," Luo Chichi said. Xing Yuan nodded in agreement. "That's right. If we wish to save Zhongshe, it'll be best for us to quickly return to the academy and report this matter to the superiors and have them send men here. This is the best we can do at the moment." Yu Fei also nodded before issuing some instructions. "All right then. Xing Yuan, since Grandmaster Wu Yang's corpse is in your storage ring, You and Yi Qian shall return to the academy right now. On the other hand, Luo Chichi and I will wait here for him to come out." This. Xing Yuan was stunned. He didn't think that Yu Fei would insist on remaining here. "Fei is right, we'll wait for him here. The both of you should hurry on. This matter is of grave importance, so you must report it to the elders face to face. Otherwise, there is no way the academy will dispatch Saint Realm expert." Luo Chichi nodded. Even though she did have a communication token that allowed her to communicate with the academy, every single Saint Realm expert was a valuable asset to the academy. Without sufficient evidence to back their story up, it was impossible for a saint to be dispatched here. To do so, they would have to present Wu Yang's corpse in person. All right. Understanding the rationale behind it, Xing Yuan hesitated for a moment before nodding. "But if we take the aerial spirit beast away, how do you intend to return?" The four of them came on a transcendent mortal 6-dan aerial spirit beast. Chapter 679, My Name is Vicious. Rewinding time back to when Zhongxian parted with Xing Yuan. In the underground chamber, a bizarre otherworldly demon puppet holding its head in its hand ran frenziedly as more than 20 otherworldly demon puppets pursued it relentlessly. They were howling furiously, threatening to rip the other party to shreds should they lay their hands on it. Seeing how the idea he'd thought of on a whim had sent all of these puppets into such a frenzy, Zhongxian's curiosity intensified. In truth, this puppet body was disposable to him. As souls were intangible, it would be difficult for these puppets to stop him if he were to make a serious attempt at escaping. Not to mention, he had a golden page in the Library of Heaven's Path as well. Even if he were to be cornered, he still had a trump card up his sleeves, so there was nothing for him to fear. This was also the reason why he had the others flee first while he drew the puppets away. He thought that it would be great if he could draw some of the puppets away through his taunting. Who knew that he would actually successfully draw the aggression from all of the puppets, making them chase him rabidly as if he had murdered their parents? To actually make these unintelligent puppets get so agitated, what in the world was that heart? No matter what, as long as I touch it, I should know the answer. The only way to let everyone escape successfully was for him to continue drawing the attention of the puppets. Thus, without any hesitation, Zhongxian continued dashing forward with his head in his hand. 7 breaths later, he was standing before the stream. The small stone pedestal and the heart were still there. Let's see what it is. With the puppets right behind his tail, there was no room for other thoughts in Zhongxian's mind. He immediately leaped forward and stepped into the stream. Roar! 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 Upon seeing Zhongxian leap into the stream, all of the puppets were worried, but none of them dared rush forward. They glared at him angrily, seemingly wanting to grind him to dust. Seeing that the puppets didn't even rush over as he had expected, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. In truth, back when he saw the puppets stepping into the stream one by one to accept a transfusion of energy from the heart, he was a little perplexed by the sight. And now, it seemed like his conjecture was right. There was some kind of rule binding the puppets that only allowed one of them to step into the stream at any given time. Let's see what this heart is. Zhongxian began walking to the stone pedestal that the heart was placed on. Voila! As soon his gaze fell upon the heart, he immediately felt an overwhelming killing intent piercing his mind just like a dagger. Knowing that this would happen, Zhongxian immediately activated his Heaven's Path soul art and drove his soul energy. In an instant, that sharp pain weakened significantly, but even so, Zhongxian still felt as if his head was splitting apart. Zhongxian stopped in his tracks. It's hard for me to stand against the killing intent without Heaven's Path Shenqi. The killing intent emanated from the heart was far stronger than the otherworldly demon which Hongsha took out back at the Master Teacher tournament. Even though his soul had been tempered by the Heaven's Path soul art, it was still difficult for him to withstand that overwhelming killing intent without the protection of his Heaven's Path Shenqi. Even standing at this point was sufficiently difficult for him. If he were to proceed forward any further, it was highly possible that his mind would be corroded by the killing intent, thus suffering immense damage. Zhongxian turned around to take a look at the other puppets behind him. While they were infuriated by his actions, they dared not get too close. In fact, they didn't dare to launch any attack at all. For the time being, there was no need for him to worry about his safety. Voila! He took out the body which he had placed inside his storage ring previously. Then, he withdrew his soul from the puppet and returned back into his main body. After entering his main body, he finally felt more comfortable, and he heaved a long sigh of relief. Even though the otherworldly demon puppet's body was much stronger than his current body, he wasn't able to control it adept, and there was a strong feeling of incongruity when he was moving it. Heaven's Path Junchi. As his soul fused perfectly with his physical body, he immediately drove his Junchi. In an instant, the killing intent which had still been assaulting him a moment ago was immediately warded off entirely, as if it didn't exist at all. Heaven's Path Junchi seemed to possess the ability to curb the mysterious aura that otherworldly demons emanated. He had verified this back then during the Master-Teacher tournament. Roar. Seeing a human appear in the stream all of the sudden, the puppets' anger crescendoed. They bellowed angrily at him, but in fear of something, they dared not step forward. As long as the puppets didn't dare to step into the stream, there was nothing for Zhongxian to worry about. Thus, he continued advancing to the heart slowly. In order to trigger the library of Heaven's Path, he would have to come into contact with it. With a few steps, he was already standing before the stone pedestal. His hand slowly reached forward to touch the heart. Ha 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 ha. Upon contact, Zhongxian barely had the time to mutter flaws when a deranged laughter suddenly echoed in the surroundings. Following which, a huge shadow suddenly appeared before his eyes. This body. Great. Great. Even the heavens are on my side. That massive shadow before Zhongxian roared in delight. The heart also began to beat faster and faster, as if it had encountered some precious, nourishing medicinal herb. With this body, I can finally revive myself after many millenniums of hibernation. The massive figure was shaking with agitation. With a loud bellow, its eyes suddenly opened, and a sharp glint flashed in its eyes. Kongsha, it's too bad you failed to kill me entirely. When I return, I'll crush your heritage and reduce your Master-Teacher pavilion to ruins. While roaring furiously, that massive figure stretched its hand forward to grab Zhongxian up. That heart on the pedestal also suddenly rose up and flew to the left side of his chest. With immense force, it rammed itself against him, seemingly trying to penetrate his body to replace his heart. If it were to succeed, Zhongxian's consciousness would be consumed, and he would lose his sense of identity. What? Zhongxian's expression immediately froze. Before that massive figure, he felt like an ant standing before a mountain. Helplessness clutched his heart. It's too powerful. The strongest person he had encountered in his journey was Pavilion Master Mo from Hongyuan Empire. But somehow, Zhongxian's instincts told him that even a person as strong as Pavilion Master Mo would be no different from a worm before this fearsome heart. The sensation he was feeling at this moment was similar to back when he first met Kongsha. His mind and body were no longer under his own control, and his life and death were held in the hands of the other party. Zhongxian panicked. Am I going to be possessed by this fellow? He was only interested in seeing what the heart was. Never had he dreamed that the heart would actually be alive, and he would even be possessed at that. If the other party were to succeed in its possession, Zhongxian's consciousness would be wiped clean. By then, he would be no different from a puppet. Heaven's Path Junchi. Zhongxian immediately willed for his body to drive his Heaven's Path Junchi, but he realized that the mental connection between his mind and body had been snapped, preventing him from making any movements. He felt as if he was trapped in a dream. He could perceive what was going on around him, but no matter how much he struggled, his body just wouldn't move at all. Don't even bother struggling. The massive figure before the heart seemed to have noticed what Zhongxian was trying to do, and it sneered coldly. Even Kongsha had suffered a great deal before my prowess. You might be a celestial Master-Teacher, but you're still too weak to stand against me. I suggest you obediently allow me to take over your body. In your body, I'll dominate the world and make the entire world tremor beneath my might. Zhongxian couldn't help but ask, even Kongsha has suffered before your prowess. Who are you? Kongsha was the most powerful figure in the world several dozen millenniums ago. He single-handedly created the Master-Teacher Pavilion to fend off the otherworldly demons and expel them from the Master-Teacher continent. His contribution to humanity was so great that none could compare to him, and his cultivation was so high that he had no peers. And yet, this fellow actually said he was able to injure Kongsha. Who in the world was he? It has been too long for me to remember my name. The heartbeat and an ancient aura slowly exuded from the massive figure. But back then, everyone seemed to address me as Vicious. Vicious? That's right. Are you afraid now? Vicious asked. I never heard of you before, Zhongxian replied. The heart. Most of the details regarding the ancient history with the otherworldly demons were stored in the higher-tier Master-Teacher pavilions. As a 4-star Master Teacher, Zhongxian wasn't qualified to browse through those documents. And thus, he had truly never heard of what Vicious or Victim, whatever the other party was called. Humph, it matters not. Today, you shall witness my greatness. Not expecting for a celestial Master Teacher to not recognize him, the heart began beating intensely in anger, and with a loud roar, the huge hands of the shadowy figure grabbed Zhongxian's neck. Gee. The crushing pressure on Zhongxian's neck made him gasp desperately for air, and his sight began to darken. In the other party's hands, he was no different from an infant. He was unable to retaliate at all. Under this desperate situation, Zhongxian forcefully uttered, You intend to possess me? Indeed. A celestial Master Teacher is a person whose body has been recognized by even the heavens themselves. Even though I am a member of the otherworldly demonic tribe, I am still able to possess their body without incurring any side effects. In fact, I am even able to disguise as you humans without anyone noticing anything. The heart harumphed. You are able to tell that I am a celestial Master Teacher? Zhongxian stuttered with difficulty. So far, there had been not a single Master Teacher who had been able to discern that he was a celestial Master Teacher. Thus, he didn't expect this heart would be able to recognize this identity of his. Could this heart really be an incredible expert on par with Kongsha? To be able to stand against Kongsha, how powerful must one be? And not to mention, if the other party had lived in the same era as Kongsha, how could he still be alive now? The heart harumphed coldly. That fellow Kongsha is one as well. Having fought with him my entire life, how could I possibly not recognize a celestial Master Teacher? Back in that ancient era, he was Kongsha's greatest nemesis, and he had fought with the latter his entire life. Naturally, this had allowed him to grow accustomed to the various abilities and distinctive traits of a celestial Master Teacher. Since you are from the same generation as Kongsha, I must be nothing more than an ant before you. Why don't you let me down first? I won't be able to retaliate against you, anyway. Zhongxian said anxiously. Do you think that your tricks will work on me? The heart sneered. Given how powerful you are, I won't be able to do anything, even if I wanted to. Due to the immense pressure crushing down on his throat, Zhongxian was finding it harder and harder to speak. I am about to be possessed by you soon. Before my death, I wish to know some things, so that I can rest in peace. Humph, there's no use playing such tricks before me, the heart replied. Why? You don't believe me? You spoke as if you were a formidable figure, and yet you are worried about someone as weak as me? Zhongxian replied. Audacious. When I was roaming the world, even Kongsha was fearful of me. Even 9-star Master Teachers would be crushed easily under my hands. Why would I fear someone as weak as you? Hearing Zhongxian doubt his strength, the heart flew into a rage. If that's the case, why don't you let me go? Anyway, someone like me can't possibly hurt you. Zhongxian continued. The heart pondered for a moment, and seemingly agreeing with Zhongxian's words, he finally let go of his grasp. Even though Vicious had been one of the strongest existences in the world in the past, his fight with Kongsha had left him severely injured. Even the many millennia of hibernation were insufficient for him to recover fully. With his current strength, possessing a celestial Master Teacher would be no easy feat if he could convince the other party to willingly give up his body. He could be spared a lot of unnecessary trouble. Feeling the strength restraining him disappearing, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. Ask whatever you want to, I'll grant your dying wish at the very least. The heart said. All right. Zhongxian nodded. Feeling the connection between his mind and his body returning, he suddenly smiled. I would like to ask if you recognize this object. After which, a golden book suddenly appeared before him. This? What is this? The heart was taken aback. While he was still pondering over this bizarre question, that book suddenly crushed down on him. Following which, a frenzied howling reverberated across the entire underground chamber. Shit! What the hell? Who in the world are you? Chapter 680. Please trust me. Zhongxian's intention was to examine what the heart was, but right after coming into contact with it, his body immediately came under the control of the other party. Left with no choice, he could only try to convince the other party to let go of him. It was a desperate attempt, but who knew that it would really work? As soon as he was released, he rushed right into the Library of Heaven's Path to check the book that was just compiled on the heart, and after taking a look, he immediately realized what was going on. Even though Vicious had described himself to be a powerful figure, he was nothing more than a fragment of his previous self. He had barely awoken from his long hibernation not too long ago, and he was still in a severely weakened state. Even if he could possess Zhongxian, he would have to pay a heavy price for it. However, if Zhongxian were to relinquish control over his body, Vicious would be spared a lot of trouble. In any case, this was the only opportunity Zhongxian was going to get to deal with Vicious. He immediately whipped out the Book of Heaven's Path and activated the golden page. This was the strongest weapon he currently had in his arsenal. Even if Vicious had really come from the same era as Kongshe, it was impossible for him to withstand the wrath of heaven. As expected, with the materialization of the book, the energy from the heart that was wrapped around Zhongxian to prevent him from escaping vanished, and he regained control over his body. Who am I? I am your grandfather. Zhongxian roared furiously as the book smashed down on the heart. However, before the book could crush the heart, the pedestal beneath the heart shattered instead. Hong Long. With the destruction of the pedestal, the formation sustaining the entire underground chamber began collapsing. Spiritual energy from the stream began diffusing into the surroundings, and the underground chamber started to shake violently. This is bad, I forgot that this is the core of the formation. Zhongxian's face darkened. He was too intent on dealing with Vicious and freeing himself from danger that he forgot that he was standing before the core of the formation sustaining the underground chamber. This underground chamber was relying on a huge formation to regulate the spiritual energy and reinforce the structures here, and the center of the formation just happened to be the location where the heart was placed, the pedestal. With the collapse of the pedestal, the reinforcement from the formation to prevent the underground chamber from collapsing vanished, and the ceiling began caving in on them. From his current location, it would take at least 2 to 3 minutes for him to escape from the underground chamber. Given the rate at which the underground chamber was collapsing at, it was impossible for him to escape. He would be buried alive. But at this moment, the anxious yelling of the heart crushed under the golden book sounded, "Don't kill me. I can bring you to safety." Hearing those words, Zhongxian stared at the heart hesitantly for a moment before replying, "Fine, I'll trust you this once." Vicious was by no means a trustworthy person, but the dire situation Zhongxian was in didn't grant him the luxury of choice. The underground chamber was going to collapse on him at any moment now, and it was already too late for him to escape. His only hope lay with Vicious. Given the millenniums that the other party had lived for, he might be aware of certain secrets hidden in the underground chamber. Perhaps, the other party might just know of something that could save him. Having made up his mind, Zhongxian was about to withdraw the book when a thought suddenly struck him. I might be unable to kill him now, but I wonder if it's possible for me to seal him with the golden page. Once Zhongxian withdraws the golden page, it would vanish. Without this weapon to keep Vicious in check, there was no saying that the latter might just renege on his promise. Since the golden page could assimilate the content of the books in the Library of Heaven's Path for his own, raise his soul depth, and slay enemies, then perhaps, it might be able to turn into something that could seal this heart too. If he could seal Vicious into the golden page somehow, he would not need to worry about the other party's retaliation. Hula. As soon as the thought emerged in his mind, the book suddenly opened up, and a brilliant pillar of light rose from the book. Wham! In an instant, the book clamped down on the heart, and the pillar of light vanished as well. It floated in the air for a few seconds before abruptly falling to the ground. Rushing forward to grab the book, Zhongxian opened it up and saw a heart beating ceaselessly inside. Realizing that it was trapped within the book, it struggled with all its might, but it wasn't able to escape from the confine of the page. It was a mystical sight to see a beating heart within a book. "Let me go," the heart roared savagely. Delighted to see that the Book of Heaven's path possessed the ability to seal as well, Zhongxian chuckled and said, "Bring me to a safe location first. I am vicious, a person whom even Kongsha fears. How dare an impertinent ant like you treat me like that?" The heart bellowed ferociously, but before he could finish his words, he was suddenly flicked by a finger. Pang! As if struck by a bolt of lightning, the heart was sent tumbling into the depths of the page. "Your name is vicious, isn't it? Why don't you give me a bright smile? Let me see how vicious you can get." Zhongxian smirked. The heart twitched violently, as tears of blood threatened to flow from its atriums. To think that a day would come which he would find himself in such a position. Back then, he was the infamous vicious who domineered the world. Even though he was still in a weakened state, having yet to recover his strength after his demise back then, the strength that he wielded was still more than sufficient for him to toy with Saint Realm experts easily. And yet, here he was, sealed by a 20-year-old brat in a book, flicked around as if he was a mere toy. To hell with this. Where did my dignity as the Immortals' envoy go? Even though he had no idea what kind of artifact he was trapped in, the imposing authority of heaven harnessed by the artifact induced a deep and instinctive fear within him, rendering him helpless before it. Honestly speaking, in face of such overwhelming power, he knew that it was a blessing that he was still alive at this point. "Why? You aren't going to smile?" Just as he was bubbling with rage, he saw the other party bending his forefinger, ready to send another flick at him. The heart immediately cowered in fear. I'll smile." The heart formed a human face and smiled. What choice did he have but to submit? He was already sealed in this book, and his fate was firmly held in the other party's hands. He might have been a formidable figure in the past, but that was all history. It couldn't possibly help him now. As bright as the smile on his face was, his heart was bleeding profusely. Back then, I stood toe-to-toe with Kongsha and crushed many 9-star master teachers. And yet, here I am, forced to smile under the commands of a mere brat. This is more like it. Now, lead me to somewhere safe. Having affirmed that the other party was under his control, Zhongxian heaved a long sigh of relief. However, this wasn't the time for him to rest yet. At this point, the ground was shaking more vehemently than ever, and the ceiling was still moments from caving in on them. Yes. Upon seeing Zhongxian withdraw his finger, the heart heaved a sigh of relief before turning to the otherworldly demons and yelled, "Hurry up and lead the way." Roar. Upon receiving those orders, the otherworldly demon puppets standing by the edge of the stream immediately rushed forward. Grabbing the book with Vicious in it in his hand, Zhongxian followed closely behind those puppets. At the same time, he also established communication with his clone and urged him over. Not too long after, his clone came rushing over, and Zhongxian hid him in his storage ring. Forged using the 9 Hearts Lotus, his clone could be said to be nearing the point of being indestructible. Even the combined might of 2 Saint Realm puppets couldn't threaten its existence. Just that, due to the severe injuries it had incurred, it would require a long rest to recuperate from its wounds. With the heart held hostage in Zhongxian's hands, those puppets didn't dare to show the slightest disrespect to Zhongxian. In fact, 2 of the puppets even stepped forward to carry Zhongxian. When Saint Realm puppets sprinted as fast as they could, the speed was truly nothing to scoff at. In less than 2 breaths, they were already standing in a vast room. At this point, the underground chamber finally gave into the massive pressure and caved in. With its collapse, the room was abruptly plunged into darkness. Thus, Zhongxian whipped out a night illumination pearl to light up the surroundings. Following which, he opened the book, and the heart immediately began explaining, "This is a sanctuary we built to escape from the humans were they to enter this underground chamber. It is specially reinforced such that it will remain standing even if the underground chamber collapses. Just that, there's no exit from here. Back then, after the otherworldly demonic tribe lost the war, their army was expelled from the master-teacher continent while the remnants were hunted down. As one of the top leaders of the otherworldly demons, Vicious had prepared a sanctuary in advance for such a situation. Even if humans were to find his hiding location, he would be able to kill them all by collapsing the underground chamber while he hid in this sanctuary. However, to prevent anyone from finding this underground chamber, there was only one entrance and exit. While they were still safe for now, it was hard to say whether they would be able to get out of here or not. There's no exit. Zhong Xian frowned. If there was no exit here, wouldn't it be a matter of time before he suffocated to death? That's right. The heart replied. Is that the case? Since I can't get out, I might as well absorb you to raise my cultivation. Zhong Xian raised his palm and pressed it down against the page. The Book of Heaven's Path had sealed Vicious abilities, thus rendering him completely helpless before Zhong Xian. Wait a moment, wait a moment. The heart was on the verge of tears. Back then, there was no one who didn't fear him, not even the most ferocious demon in hell nor Kongsha. And yet, this fellow actually threatened to beat him up and absorb him. The sudden reversal in his position left him so frustrated that he found himself losing his mind. But throwing a tantrum would be useless now. Judging from the other party's attitude, he might really just end up being absorbed by the other party. What the hell was this? It wasn't easy for him to wake up from his hibernation, and he thought that he could finally slowly recover his strength and rule the world. And yet, before he could even leave the underground chamber, he just had to meet with this kind of pervert possessing such a monstrous artifact. Even the great codex of spring and autumn that Kongsha went to great lengths to craft, which was said to harness the ability to reverse yin-yang and alter the flow of time, didn't seem to be this powerful. Just who was this fellow? Where in the world did he pop up from? There's indeed no exit, but it's possible to dig a way out. However, it might take a few days. The heart quickly placated Zhong Xian's worries for fear of being absorbed. Dig a way out. True. You should hurry up and get those puppets of yours to work then. Zhong Xian waved his hands casually. Considering how they were able to excavate such a huge underground chamber in the first place, it shouldn't come as a surprise that they would be able to dig a passageway out either. And since there were so many puppets here, there was no need for Zhong Xian to work personally, either. All right, the heart replied. He used an unknown means to communicate with the puppets, and they started to dig upward. These puppets were commanded might equivalent to a Saint Realm expert, so digging a tunnel for a human to pass through wasn't too difficult. However, the tricky part was that the underground chamber had just collapsed, so the surrounding ground was a little unstable at the moment. If they weren't careful, the sanctuary could collapse as well. While the puppets were busy digging a path out, Zhong Xian waited patiently below. He turned his attention to the book once more. All right, I have some questions I would like to ask you. Answer me honestly. Yes. The heart replied. Since you came from the same era as Kongsha and even exchanged blows with him, have you ever heard of his innate fetal poison? Zhong Xian asked. Through the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhong Xian could tell that Vicious was telling the truth. He did belong to the same era as Kongsha, so there was a chance that he might know about the innate fetal poison. Innate fetal poison? I'm not too sure either. Kongsha and I were enemies, and he was already considerably strong in the first time we met. The heart replied. In that era, the otherworldly demonic tribe dominated the humans and all other races. It was during that period of time that Kongsha suddenly rose to power. Even from a very young age, he wielded exceptional strength surpassing that of most otherworldly demons. Under his leadership, the armies of humanity were rallied in a campaign against the otherworldly demons, and eventually, humanity emerged victorious in that war. Are you certain that you don't know anything about that? Are you lying to me? Zhong Xian narrowed his eyes. I dare not. The heart hurriedly explained, but before he could finish his words, he was flicked by the other party's finger once more. Ah! Peng 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 peng. As if struck by a bolt of lightning, he was sent spinning in the Book of Heaven's Path, and his body convulsed violently from the impact. White foam began leaking out from the heart. "This is nothing. If I ever find out that you are hiding something from me, I'll kill you," Zhongxian said. "Yes." Red tears streamed down the heart as it trembled in agitation. "I really am vicious, the vicious who dominated the ancient era, the vicious whom even Kongsha feared. Please trust me." Chapter 681. Qin Zhong. After asking a few more questions, Zhongxian finally closed the book. The fellow was indeed unaware of the matters surrounding Kongsha's innate fetal poison, so it was impossible for Zhongxian to get anything out of him. Being poisoned was a sign of weakness. One would hide it even from one's allies, not to mention one's enemies. This was similar to how Zhongxian had never told anyone that he was poisoned. Most likely, Kongsha back then was the same as well. But in any case, through the questioning session, Zhongxian did manage to understand the true reason for that fellow being reduced to a mere heart, and the real purpose behind this underground chamber. The previous host of the heart did wield destructive power, and he did dominate the world at one time. Countless humans had died by his hand. Kongsha had fought him several times, but the other party always managed to successfully get away. It was only at the very last battle that after several days of combat, Kongsha finally managed to tear apart his flesh and bones and dissipate his soul. He had indeed died, but as one of the strongest experts of that era, one of the leaders of the otherworldly demon, how could he possibly have no aces up his sleeves? Before fighting with Kongsha, he had already left behind a drop of blood in this underground chamber in case anything happened. And to protect that drop of blood, he dispatched an entire army of otherworldly demons to guard it. After the passing of many millenniums, the drop of blood finally developed and metamorphosed into a heart. Slowly, he roused from his sleep, regaining consciousness. He'd thought that he would very soon be able to rule the world, but before he could even get out from his hiding spot, he just had to meet with Zhongxian and end up being sealed in that book, becoming an existence that was little more than a picture. As for those puppets, even though they had lost sentience, they were still his descendants. Their otherworldly demon instincts allowed him to easily control them and have them work for his resurrection. At this point, a thought suddenly emerged in Zhongxian's mind. Wu Yangzi thought that he had succeeded in his ploy by turning these otherworldly demons into puppets, but could it be possible that the otherworldly demons had already noticed what he was up to, but still chose to go along with it anyway? There were only 20 otherworldly demon puppets here, and they were all male. Clearly, it was impossible for them to reproduce anymore. Could they have intentionally allowed Wu Yangzi to turn them into puppets so that they could guard vicious? If so, they would be able to retain their cultivation while further tempering their defenses. More importantly, they would be able to continue carrying out Vicious' order and protect him. Perhaps, they might even be revived once Vicious regained his strength. After all, as a race who had once dominated the entire master-teacher continent, how could none of them have noticed something at all? But, of course, this was just a theory on Zhongxian's part, and it was impossible to verify his conjecture anymore. Wu Yangzi died before the heart regained consciousness, and the otherworldly demons involved in the incident back then were either dead or turned into puppets. From his answers, Zhongxian realized that even though Vicious had regained consciousness, his memory hadn't completely returned yet. Many of his memories were fragmented, making it impossible for him to go into detail regarding certain matters. This was especially so for cultivation techniques. After having sealed Vicious in the book, this was one of the first few thoughts that came to mind. However, it was a pity, but the other party only knew cultivation techniques that were exclusive to otherworldly demons. This made Zhongxian extremely frustrated. He thought that he would be able to obtain quite a few cultivation techniques after capturing an ancient monster and level up swiftly. Who knew that the other party would turn out to be so useless? Zhongxian had to punch the other party a few more times before he was able to quell his frustration. After asking all of the relevant questions, Zhongxian noted that it would still take some time before the puppets would finish digging a passageway. Thus, he sat down on the floor and began to cultivate. Even though he had only cultivated the first incandescence of the quintuple incandescence golden body, the might of his physical body had increased from 2 million ding to 4 million ding, Adding in the 4 million ding from his junchi and 3,200,000 ding from his soul cultivation, his overall strength added up to 11,200,000 ding. That was comparable to a transcendent mortal 7 Dan perfect harmonization realm pinnacle expert. Perfect harmonization realm primary stage 8 million ding, intermediate stage 9 million ding, advanced stage 10 million ding, and pinnacle 11 million ding. Despite being only at transcendent mortal 5 Dan consonant spirit realm pinnacle, Zhongxian actually wielded strength 2 realms beyond him. Even the most talented geniuses of the Master Teacher Academy were incapable of such a feat, as the remaining 4 incandescents were flawed and required some kind of artifact to cultivate. Zhongxian could only put the thought of cultivating his physical body away from the moment. He continued to refine his zhenqi and accumulate more zhenqi in his dantian. It has been 5 days. Looking at the huge depression below her, Luo Chichi shook her head with irrepressible gloom. 5 days had passed, and she had yet to sleep at all. She had been waiting here intently, hoping that Zhongshe would produce another miracle and emerge from the ground, but it seemed like miracles wouldn't be miracles if they happened as and when one willed it. Even a transcendent mortal 8 Dan wouldn't be able to survive so long being buried underground. Euphea also looked a little dazed. When the other party was right by her side, she dearly wanted to charge forward to bite off the other party's flesh. And yet, at this moment, the very thought of the other party being dead felt like a sharp knife pressed against her heart. Even though the body of a transcendent mortal was far stronger than ordinary humans, buried several hundred meters underground, crushed by rocks and suffocated, 3 to 4 hours was likely the limit. To remain alive after several days was completely impossible. In other words, Zhongshe was really dead this time. There was no doubt about it. Gritting her teeth, Euphea stood up slowly and said quietly, "I'll go to the Beast Hall to borrow an aerial spirit beast and return to Hongyuan City as soon as possible. I'll report this matter to my father and have him send some men over. Even though Xing Yuan and the others might be able to mobilize the experts of the academy, I fear that they won't put their all into finding Zhongshe. It wasn't a solution for them to continue waiting here. The only course of action they could take now was to find a Saint Realm expert to help them dig up the underground chamber. Regardless of whether Zhongshe was dead or alive, they were determined to find him. The experts from the academy might come for the otherworldly demons and Wu Yangzi, but it would be nigh impossible to convince them to help look around for Zhongxian. While Zhongxian was a member of the academy in name, he hadn't passed the entrance examination nor reported to the academy yet. Thus, there was no reason for a busy Saint Realm expert to waste his time finding a nobody. Not to mention, the other party was very likely dead already. All right. Luo Chichi nodded slowly. After waiting for 5 days, she also understood that it was unlikely for Zhongshe to emerge alive anymore. As his student, the least she could do was unearth his body and bury him properly so that he could rest in peace. Euphea did a rough calculation before saying, "The Huanyu Empire Beast Hall is located not too far away from here. As long as we sprint with all our might, we should be able to reach it in around half a day." Half a day? There's no need for it. We are standing at a point where those traveling between the Beast Hall and Huanyu capital have to pass through. We can try to hitch a ride here, Luo Chichi said as she glanced at the sky. Even though they weren't too far away from the Beast Hall, they had to traverse across treacherous terrain, and it was highly likely they would meet spirit beasts lurking in the area as well. If they were to accidentally catch the attention of the spirit beasts while passing through the area, the half-a-day journey could easily drag on for 3 days. Since that was the case, it would be wiser for them to pay a passerby and hitch a convenient ride to the Beast Hall. Since they were standing at a point between the Beast Hall and Huanyu capital, there were often many aerial spirit beasts flying through the area. Perhaps very soon, they might be able to find one to ride. If so, they would be able to reach their destination within half an hour, thus sparing them a lot of trouble. Euphea nodded. Very coincidentally, the sound of something whizzing through the sky and the flapping of wings suddenly echoed in the sky. Raising her gaze, she saw a massive greenleaf-winged dragon beast flying toward them. Greenleaf-winged dragon beast. This is a consonant spirit realm spirit beast that possesses the dragon bloodline. It is one of the better spirit beasts even when comparing the entire Beast Hall. Let's take this then. After taking a closer look at the appearance of the spirit beast, Luo Chichi immediately gathered her zhunqi in a dantian before shouting, "I am Master Teacher Luo Chichi. My friend and I wish to hitch a ride on your spirit beast." The identity of a master teacher was prestigious, and it was more likely that the other party would be willing to help after she reported it. As expected, after hearing her words, the green-leaf-winged dragon beast circled the sky for a moment before descending to the ground, right before the duo. Instead of a usual lodging room on the back of the spirit beast, there was only a shabby rope. As soon as the green-leaf-winged dragon beast landed on the ground, a young man immediately leaped off its back. The young man looked to be in his 30s, and he was dressed extravagantly. His eyes had a sharpness within them that felt a little uncomfortable to look at. Just like Luo Chichi and Yu Feiya, he was a Cosmos Bridge realm expert as well. Beast Hall's Qin Zhong pays respect to Luo Shi. Not expecting that the ones who wished to hitch a ride would be such beautiful ladies, Qin Zhong's eyes immediately lit up in agitation. Despite his identity, he had never met ladies as beautiful as this. The both of us wish to hitch a ride on your spirit beast to visit the Beast Hall. May I know if you're willing to do us this favor? Luo Chichi asked. It's my pleasure to take the both of you with me, Qin Zhong said excitedly. Just that, there is no lodging room on my spirit beast, so this ride might be a little uncomfortable for you too. That isn't a problem. Luo Chichi shook her head. Their current aim was to reach return to Hongyuan Empire as soon as possible so as to rally help to find Zhongxian. Comfort was the least of their worries now. May I know what an acceptable price for you is? Yu Feiya asked. It was customary for one to pay after hitching a ride. Usually, the price would be agreed on by both sides beforehand so as to avoid complications after the ride. There's no need to stand on ceremony. It's my pleasure to have such beautiful ladies on board my spirit beast. How can I accept your money? Qin Zhong placed his hands behind his back and put on his most dashing face in hopes of attracting the other party's attention. However, the other party didn't seem to have noticed it at all. We'll feel more at ease if you accept our payment. Seeing the flirtatious looks from the other party, Luo Chichi could tell that he had other thoughts in mind, and she frowned in displeasure. If not for the urgent situation at hand, she would never have bothered herself with such an arrogant fellow. This. Upon Luo Chichi's insistence, Qin Zhong hesitated for a moment before replying, how about this? You two seem to have spent quite some time in the mountains already. If you two accompany me for a meal at the Beast Hall, that'll suffice as the payment. Accompany you for a meal? How could Luo Chichi and Yu Feiya possibly not know what the other party was thinking about? It was already as clear as day. Their faces immediately darkened. How dare this fellow from the Huanyu Empire Beast Hall attempt to philander with 2 5-star master teachers? How brazen. That's right. Don't worry, I don't have any other thoughts in mind. Besides, considering how the both of you are in such a hurry to the Beast Hall, you must be trying to find a formidable aerial spirit beast to ride on. As a 4-star beast tamer and the son of the incumbent hall master, I'm sure I will be able to help the both of you. Qin Zhong smiled proudly. As long as he made his identity as the young master of the Beast Hall known, most people would immediately show some respect to him. Even if the young ladies were master teachers, judging from their age, they couldn't possibly be ranked above 3-star. After learning his identity, he was confident that the duo would surely think differently of him. And before long, there would be 2 ladies in his embrace. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.